of exactly what Donley does and how much they need your collection. They have so many buyers. It's a great time to sell. Just simply make a phone call. Donley has traveled all over the country to pick up collections. Just call and talk to the people at Donley Auctions at 815-923-7000. Donley Auctions is your trusted partner in turning your collections into cash. DonleyAuctions.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be very warm with a mix of sunshine and clouds, reaching a high of 85. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn with a low of 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. It was interesting. Yesterday's show, we ended with FBI criminal profiler Jim Fitzgerald. Now, this was sort of concurrent with the FBI press conference that was going on at the time to update the investigation, in which we learned right at the end of yesterday's show that they had discovered the bolt-action rifle that they believed to be the assassin's weapon in the Charlie Kirk assassination, of course, in a wooded area. They had pretty good video of him. They understood that he fled to a nearby neighborhood. They subsequently, after the program yesterday, released photos of the person of interest. But one of the things that Fitzgerald said in our conversation, so before this started to come into somewhat of a focus, of course, there's no one in custody yet, so it's far from completely in focus. But he said, criminal profiler that he was, I wouldn't be surprised if this was trans-related, either a person who was identifying that way or inspired by that particular issue. I wouldn't be surprised if we ultimately found a manifesto when this person is apprehended. And lo and behold, yesterday we did get some information from an ATF report that was linked, an ATF leaked, I should say, an internal document which allegedly disclosed internal communications about the murder weapon. So this is all alleged, but it has been reported. So there's enough news agencies that believe this to be authentic. The part of the description of this, where this bolt-action rifle was found, wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. Location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds at the top-fed magazine. And then this, all cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. And then it went on to talk more about the technical aspects of what they found. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology, supposedly from a leaked ATF report about the weapon they believe to be the assassin's weapon. So Jim Fitzgerald wouldn't be surprised if what seems to at least be an early indication turned out to be true, and it's as I said, an early indication that that could indeed be the issue that inspired this person. Of course, we also have some indication that that is accurate. By the way, CNN reported the same story. Federal officials probe rifle and ammo scrawled with cultural phrases after Charlie Kirk killing. Cultural phrases. We don't want to get into exactly what sorts of cultural phrases they were, because, you know, it's not like they were reportedly conservative, quote unquote, cultural phrases when they're leftist cultural phrases associated with a gruesome crime, then they're cultural phrases. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. So, as this investigation proceeds and as ultimately this person is apprehended, which I fully anticipate, if the past is prologue, our past experience covering people who commit horrible crimes in the name of leftist ideology, we know how that gets covered and muted and misdirected, and it's already happening in still what I would constitute the early stages of this investigation. Related matter, President Trump yesterday was asked if he had spoken to the Charlie Kirk family, and he had this to offer.
Say it?
Did you speak with his family?
I did. I spoke to Erica, his wife, and we had a long talk, and she's devastated. She is absolutely devastated, as you can imagine.
Yes, of course, but the president did reach out. You, I'm sure, saw the story that Air Force Two was used to transport Charlie Kirk back to his family, J.D. Vance in tow. Very interesting, the ongoing fallout from this and the statements that are being made. Before we get to the unkind and intemperate statements, of which there are many, one from perhaps a surprising source, that one that is not intemperate, one that is, actually strikes the proper tone, uses the right language. The surprising source of that statement is Comrade Bernie. Bernie Sanders took to posting a video yesterday condemning political violence, saying this.
Thank you very much for joining me. I want to say a few words regarding the terrible murder yesterday of Charlie Kirk, someone who I strongly disagreed with on almost every issue, but who was clearly a very smart and effective communicator and organizer, and someone unafraid to get out into the world and engage the public. My condolences go out to his wife and his family. A free and democratic society, which is what America is supposed to be about, depends upon the basic premise that people can speak out, organize, and take part in public life without fear, without worrying that they might be killed, injured, or humiliated for expressing their political views. In fact, that is the essence of what freedom is about and what democracy is about. You have a point of view? That's great. I have a point of view that is different than yours. That's great. Let's argue it out. We make our case to the American people at the local, state, and federal levels, and we hold free elections in which the people decide what they want. That's called freedom and democracy. And I want as many people as possible to participate in that process without fear. Freedom and democracy is not about political violence. It is not about assassinating public officials. It is not about trying to intimidate people who speak out on an issue. Political violence, in fact, is political cowardice. It means that you cannot convince people of the correctness of your ideas, and you have to impose them through force. Every American, no matter what one's political point of view may be, must condemn all forms of political violence and all forms of intimidation. We must welcome and respect dissenting points of view.
It's a surprising but not that surprising statement, considering the source. Of course, that was Comrade Bernie, Larry David impersonator. And, I call him Comrade Bernie because he has such a romantic view of the former Soviet Union because of the very affordable puppet shows that he and his wife enjoyed during their honeymoon there. But I mean, Bernie is not a revolutionary Marxist the way that I've talked about the modern Democratic Party being a revolutionary party. he's more of a Fabian socialist, more of a George Bernard Shaw socialist without the intellect, artistic talent. And that is to say, that Fabian socialists, this is sort of sprung up, these Fabian societies in Britain in the late 1800s. The idea of a gradual the state gradually enveloping civil society through small d democratic processes, just as Bernie was saying. So I make an argument, I advance policies that benefit the proletariat. The proletariat's consciousness is raised because of these beneficiary government policies, the gradual paternalism that in which the proletariat will find comfort. They will then champion, and gradually we will have the state exercise control, or perhaps we'll call it a partnership, of the means of production and oversight over the civic, mediating, cultural institutions of a society. We're going to transform society from within through gradual changes. We're not going to tear down institutions and use violence as the means to political ends to transform society. So it's the very similar destination, just a different pace. So you shouldn't be surprised to hear Comrade Bernie say it. It doesn't say what he said, which I appreciate, but it doesn't change who he is or who the party is. And what you have people like Bernie and Hillary and Obama, sort of the establishment types of this, what used to be a Democrat Socialist Party, moved from a Democrat Party to a Democrat Socialist Party. Now it's a Revolutionary Party. What you have them doing is essentially behaving the same way that Qatar does, the theocrats in charge of Qatar. We will underwrite and provide safe haven for people who do our dirty work, but we want separation from them such that they can't be front and center. We'll be front and center. We'll play both sides. We'll ultimately be the beneficiary because we'll be able to exist in both worlds. And thus, we will have a safe haven regardless of which side is ultimately victorious, the side of civilization or the side of decivilizaton. That's how I think one views a Fabian socialist like Bernie Sanders, particularly in these times. Joe in Naperville, you're on the Caucus Morning Answer.
Yeah, what a hypocrite this guy is. Everybody be very careful of these chameleon politicians just checking a box and saying, well, of course I condemn violence. Of course I do. Look, I gave this speech about how bad it was for Charlie Kirk to get killed. But then look what they do. Let's call everybody a Nazi. Let's say that ISIS terrorist. Let's feed the flames, but then stand back and go, I was not that arsonist who started the fire.
Thanks for the call, Joe. That's sort of the point that Clay Travis made yesterday on Fox, and we'll pick it up there at 5:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 62 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Almost 2 days have gone by. Thousands of leads have poured in, and still no one is in custody for the murder of former SRN Salem radio news talk show host and political activist Charlie Kirk. The Turning Point USA founder was speaking at a campus event at a Utah college Wednesday when he was struck by a single bullet in the neck and killed. 2 arrests were made the same day, but they didn't pan out. Now authorities have released video of the suspect from the scene and are asking the public for help as the investigation continues. Kirk's funeral is expected to be held soon in Phoenix, Arizona, where Turning Point is based, and President Trump has already confirmed he'll be there. Mortgage rates are down this week.
Mortgage buyer Freddie Mac said Thursday the average rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage is 6.25%. That's down from 6.5% last week. It's the biggest weekly drop in a year, but rates are still higher than they were this time last year. Mortgage applications were up more than 9% last week. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
This report is sponsored by Discover. Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/credit card. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but
Mike Gallagher points out the ultimate troll.
The behavior of Gavin Newsom is so wild, where he's got this shtick down now where he's trying to mimic Trump. And J.D. Vance was asked about it and said, I love his line, he's going to make him crazy. You talk about a real troll? Here's trolling. You can't mimic the king.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9, right before Charlie Kirk at 11 on AM 560. The Answer.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-330-8323 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-330-8323. That's 800-330-8323. What do you have to lose? Call 800-330-8323. Again, 800-330-8323.
Wow. At the time of this being written, both gold and silver are up some 40%. That's 40% in just 1 year. In fact, this past year, gold has broken all-time historic records by hundreds of dollars an ounce. And unlike all other financial instruments used today, that historic record goes back thousands of years. In times like these, prices have never been better on most collector and gold coins. Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is trying to keep up with demand. So they're paying the most ever on not only most gold coins and bars, but also those old coin and paper money collections. They're especially looking for the scarcer dates and higher grade coins. Take advantage of the record high market price and our huge demand now, whether you're buying or selling, or just want to find out their worth. Fox Valley Coins is the place to go. Fox Valley Coins is on Route 59, just one light north of I-88 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be very warm with sunshine blending with clouds. Expect a high of 85. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn. The low will be 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, talking about the fallout from Charlie Kirk's assassination and the effort by the left to muddle the issue, which is to say political violence, generally speaking. It's not unique to one side. It is both sides. And even stronger efforts afoot to try to blame shift the assassination onto President Trump's rhetoric, the Republican Party's rhetoric. So you've seen, I mean, first of all, this is completely anticipated from the D.C. press corps. I mean, if even a fraction of the political violence was being committed in the name of conservatism, but it never would be. But if it was, I mean, there would be wall-to-wall coverage. That's all anybody would be talking about. But since that's not the case, they have to invent this false equivalence to say it's political violence across the board. We need to tone down the rhetoric across the board, and particularly with the Republican Party. That's what you saw yesterday. Some representatives of the party or the movement or the philosophy were better at handling it than others. For example, this was on that CBS morning show with Oprah's best friend there, Gayle King. And one of her co-hosts is Nate Burleson, a former Minnesota Viking. Somehow, I don't know. I guess he's CBS's answer to Michael Strahan. Get former NFLers to round out your morning show talent. For what purposes, I'm not exactly sure, but okay. This was Nate Burleson, his setup to questioning former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy about, what needs to be done now. How do we address the incendiary rhetoric that can incite the marginalized to committing acts of violence? This was his setup.
And as Tony mentioned, not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. At times they were offensive to specific communities. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. We are focused on this tragedy. Speaking of this tragedy, is this a moment for your party to reflect on political violence? Is it a moment for us to think about the responsibility of our political leaders and their voices and what it does to the masses as they get lost in misinformation or disinformation that turns in and spills into political violence? I say.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin McCarthy, not a great communicator, failed to challenge the premise to what you heard from Nate Burleson. Oh, Nate, this isn't the time to talk about Charlie Kirk's views or tweets that you found offensive or that you're finding offensive on behalf of some unnamed group. Now's not the time to talk about him, which is why you just talked about him. So what do you got? What are you talking about? And what's the standard? The standard is somebody takes a position that somebody else finds offensive, and therefore that position cannot be taken. I don't know what your point is. That's what the response should have been. And my party doesn't have the problem, Nate. Your folks do. I'm assuming you're a Democrat. The way you set up that question leads me to that assumption. Your party has the problem because it's a revolutionary Marxist party. And what you have, as I just said before the news, is a bunch of people that don't want to wear the jacket for political violence, but are generally happy to turn a blind eye to it or to rationalize it or to contextualize it. Like when, the New York Times Finance 1619 project head, Nicole Hannah-Jones, calls the looting and sacking of American cities after the George Floyd death symbolic takings. We make excuses for the alleged righteous anger of people that are marauding on our streets in certain contexts when it's in response to police brutality or even the accusations of police brutality, sans evidence, the general opposition to policing, like the protests for defund the police, pigs in a blanket fry 'em like what was it? Pigs in a blanket fry 'em like bacon or something like that. Talking about police, that one of the chants that was au courant in the Summer of Love back a few years ago. And it needs to be this needs to be challenged and not contextualized, but we need to bring institutional memory back to this discussion so they can't do what they like to do with American history generally, which is just begin anew at day one, and here we are. It doesn't work. No, that's no good. Tim Pawlenty, boy, where did they dig him up? Remember him? He was the front runner for the Republican nomination for president for about 5 seconds in 2012. He was so vanilla, so boring, so lifeless that He made Mitt Romney look dynamic by comparison. Well, CNN dug him up and flew him down over to New York. I don't know where Abby Phillips is. Is she in D.C. or New York? Doesn't matter. Or Atlanta, I guess, or New York. Anyway, they dug Tim Pawlenty up for their, panel. And Abby Phillip is confused by this phrase she keeps hearing. People saying in reaction to the Charlie Kirk assassination that I've been radicalized in reaction to the celebration of Charlie Kirk's assassination and the call for additional violence, the calls, plural, for additional violence. This was just the beginning. One down, more to go. I mean, those are the sorts of things that you're seeing emanating from college campuses and leftist TikTok influencers and others. And we'll get to it. Plenty of evidence. So what is this? And what is this? I'm being radicalized by the violence and ignorance and vile conduct of the left. What does that mean?
Tim, I keep hearing the word or the term I'm being radicalized on the right tonight. What does that bring up for you?
Well, I presume it means even more militancy, hopefully just in rhetoric and not in terms of violence in those coming from those voices or those parts of the movement. Those similar voices have appeared on the left over the arc of recent history, including voices from organizations like Antifa. I will say, Abby, I watched a different cable news channel tonight for a little while, and they were playing clips of Democrats using the word war in reference to Republicans. So it isn't just the Republicans using the war word, it's some Democrats as well. So if people are talking about being radicalized, maybe they mean that philosophically. I hope they don't mean that violently.
All right, everyone.
Well, it's just such a somber moment among colleagues. All right, yeah, both sides. So Tim Pawlenty just advanced their flag with that mealy-mouthed answer. That's what they mean. Some Democrats are doing it. It's not just Republicans. So now you're on defense? You're on defense talking about a revolutionary party that platforms violence as a legitimate means to political ends? No, but we have heard some intemperate remarks from Democrats, too. We have heard people say radicalize, and we have heard people talk in terms of war, very bellicose rhetoric there, Abby. So I'm concerned. I hope it doesn't mean on my side that they are radicalized and it means that there's going to be some violent response. Gosh, I hope that. I hope that's not the case. I guess it's somewhat subtle to some, what they do and what they always do in these circumstances. But I just wish we had more people who had figured out what they're doing and were prepared to challenge the premises if they're going to go on these programs as some sort of party official or thoughtful representative of the party or the conservative movement and do intellectual battle, because that's what you're supposed to do in these instances. You're supposed to provide insight so that there's greater understanding among the body politic exactly what the dynamic is and who stands where and who is playing what angle in real time. The angle Abby Phillip and CNN and the D.C. Press Corps are playing is to muddy the waters. Both sides. That's not the dynamic. That is a mischaracterization of the proportionality of the threat afoot. 312-642-5600, Turnkey Pro answer line and text line. Greg in Schaumburg.
Challenging premises, Dan. You as a student of and an expert in law and philosophy and your basic training, you know that one of the structures of a logical argument or a persuasive argument are the basis from which you're coming from. And so oftentimes, or what they're doing with Kirk right now on the left is they're taking his language and they are restructuring it outside of that structure that I've just said. that they are not getting. When Charlie would speak, Charlie would get down to first principles, and he basically would say to somebody, you either buy into my first principles or you don't. We're never going to agree, but that doesn't mean that we have to be at each other's throats. And the imprecision in general with humanity and the inability to have that structure within their language and structure it in terms of principles, as you always are advocating, is so frustrating, especially within modern political debate.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thanks for the call. It is very frustrating. It's very frustrating. First of all, if you're not starting from the same premises, you're not going to have a very interesting or productive conversation. That's number one. Number two, if you don't challenge the premise, then it becomes the sort of fluff that you just heard in the exchange between Abby Phillip and Tim Pawlenty. Nobody is any wiser for having heard that. Bill, Northwest Side.
Yeah, Dan, you're exactly right about the both sides card that they always pull. Both sides are not calling people Nazis, fascists, white supremacists, insurrectionists. They're the ones that are doing it. And every time you call somebody that kind of a name, what do you do with a Nazi and a fascist? They have to be taken care of, don't they? That's what they're inciting, and they need to be called on it every single time.
Thanks for the call, Bill. Yeah, I mean, there was this is really going on. I mean, just to give you a sense of the breadth of it, Mark Halpern's podcast. This was good, actually. The first part that you'll hear, not so much. The second part, when Sean Spicer enters the conversation, gets better. And this is the way that you handle it. So the first part is a leftist talking to a leftist. Mark Halpern worrying about an explosion if the left doesn't understand the importance of Charlie Kirk and the impact of his assassination. But also then turning to his fellow leftist, a Dem operative named Dan Turrentine, and saying, but, hey, everybody's got to account. So J6, right? Just like Jelly Belly did before we even knew that Charlie Kirk had died. J.B. Pritzker was playing that card because he is a classless, vile human being. And by the way, name calling and particularly pointed yet accurate descriptions of people is still fair in political discourse. Mark Halpern and Dan Turrentine. Hey, both sides need to ratchet down the temperature. Both sides argument. Listen to the back and forth. And Turrentine is sort of a center cut. He's one of those, one of those sort of enablers of the neo-Jacobins. He'll be very surprised when Robespierre comes for him.
I have a huge project that's immediate now, because if the left does not understand more about why Charlie was so important, we're going to have an explosion in this country because the anger is coming on the right. But you all need to do your part too. You all need to do your part too, and not just say, "Oh, January 6th, was an unfortunate, horrible day." That's an asymmetry. Dan, hold on.
I think
Sean.
Let Dan go first. He's
okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I think. I mean, again, I think both sides look at the other and say some stuff is crazy. I think both sides say the other side is evil, right? I think the way people have talked about immigrants at times has crossed from a policy debate to way more than that. I think sometimes when people talk about transgender stuff, not on this show, some people take it way more than just a policy dispute, right? And again, I go back to, it just takes one crazy person to hear a call to arms, so to speak, and say, I'm joining the army. I'm going to sacrifice myself. And it scares the hell out of people. Democrats for 8 years thought Barack Obama could get shot. And they thought And there were attempts. Someone broke into the White House once wielding a knife. I mean, it's tragic that Charlie was the one who has been killed. And I get it. And I get who he was. And I get his importance to the movement. It's heartbreaking.
So, expresses the empathy, but Barack Obama, fear of Barack Obama getting shot is the same thing as President Trump actually getting shot, you see. Saying that boys shouldn't play girls' sports is the same thing as it is the same insightful rhetoric as calling somebody a fascist, a Nazi, repeatedly, threat to democracy, suggesting that people need to be taken out, that violence is a legitimate means to political ends. All of that sort of rhetoric, that's the same thing as saying boys shouldn't be in girls' sports, you see. Spicy. He's back. He enlisted a undergrad from Florida that was also part of this panel discussion, Halpern's podcast. This was pretty good.
Logan, you went to would you go to the University of Florida? Is that what you said? Let me ask you a question. Someone walked around campus with an Obama or Biden hat or T-shirt. Would they feel safe?
He's muted.
Oh, he's not muted, or he needs to unmute.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No doubt. Okay. If they walked around with a red "Make America Great" hat, would they feel safe?
It's probably a little different than it was.
It's not probably, Logan,
years ago.
with all due respect.
No. What he's saying is it's not as dangerous now as it would have been 5 years ago.
Yeah. Maybe it's a little less dangerous now. As I said, Charlie spent his time on campuses for a reason. Conservatives are not allowed on campuses. They are shut out. They are literally not allowed, been canceled. I've had more events that you are told, sorry, we can't handle blah, 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 but they have no problem having some random leftist. You look at corporate America, where they have literally made it very clear that your views and your positions are not welcome. And if you don't adhere to a DEI woke agenda by using pronouns in your emails, you will suffer HR consequences. You look at what Hollywood, late night, the media has done. Think about Tom Cotton. He proposed an op-ed in the New York Times and people went apoplectic, fired people because you can't dare have a different voice. The big difference in this entire debate is that I have no problem listening to someone on the left. I have no problem with dissenting voices. The left will not allow people on the right to speak their mind or have a voice. So this whole argument about both sides, I can coexist with people on the left. God knows there's plenty of them. I live in Northern Virginia. But the people on the left don't want to coexist with people on the right. That is the fundamental difference. And this is the entire reason that Charlie Kirk did what he did, was to bring a voice that was missing from the dialogue.
That is a fundamental difference. And on the north side.
They put out these code words constantly in all their rallies and their press conferences. They're coming for you. They're coming for you. They're taking your rights. Fight back. I mean, the governor of Minnesota, when Trump was missing for 2 days, which he wasn't missing, he just said, we're waiting for news. Oh, we didn't have the good news, but you'll have it soon, implying that he was dead. If a congressman in California is saying we're going to bury you, you have Maxine Waters when Trump won the first election saying find them, hunt them down, don't let them rest. And they killed his brilliant mind because he was actually talking to people and he was never a hateful person. Never. But he was too powerful because he was changing young minds and he was making people think, and they don't want young people to think because they want to control them.
Thanks for the call, Ann. Yeah, he wasn't, but he has to be recharacterized as a hateful person because there's some tweets that some people like Nate Burleson disagreed with. So, it's both sides. The people that are intolerant of contrary opinions, the people that, again, use violence routinely and rationalize it as the means to political ends, the same thing as somebody taking a position that you disagree with. Talk about conflation. We'll pick this up at in the 6 o'clock hour to bring in more of these examples, take more of your calls. It is now 6 a.m. on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Still searching for Charlie Kirk's assassin. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
I think progress is being made. He's an animal, total animal. And hopefully they'll have him and they'll get him.
President Trump will be on TV on Fox and Friends next hour. Also says he had a long conversation with Kirk's widow and she's devastated. Vice President Vance flew Kirk's casket and family from Utah to Arizona, where Kirk's Turning Point USA organization is based, and the president says he'll attend the funeral. As for the manhunt,
the weapon used, a bolt-action rifle, was later recovered in a nearby wooded area, according to investigators who so far have not commented on the engraved messages which were left behind on both the firearm and ammunition. So far, again, the FBI has declined to comment on this. We've also got new, clearer images of the person of interest, and they also give us a better view of the man's face and the clothes he was wearing. A baseball cap with a triangle logo, dark sunglasses, and a black shirt with an American flag and eagle.
Fox's CB Cotton outside Utah Valley University, where Kirk was assassinated Wednesday while addressing a crowd. A U.S. Naval Academy student is hospitalized after this happened.
There was an on-campus lockdown at the Naval Academy because of what turned out to be a false report that a disgruntled, dismissed midshipman had returned, armed, posing as military police, knocking on dormitory doors. A Navy student sheltering in the dorms under that lockdown order mistook a real naval security officer clearing the building as the falsely reported active shooter.
Fox's Chris Foster, that student attacked that officer, then was shot and wounded. We're learning more about Wednesday's Colorado school shooting and the gunman, a 16-year-old student at Evergreen High.
He was radicalized by some extremist network.
Jefferson County Sheriff's spokesperson Jackie Kelly. Now that boy is dead. After wounding two fellow students in the school, he turned the gun on himself. The victims are in critical condition. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 62 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Community members in Lamont are remembering former SRN Salem radio talk show host and political activist and Chicago area native Charlie Kirk. A vigil was held yesterday.
We have to keep on fighting. It's what Charlie would want. We cannot be scared.
Lamont is the original home of Turning Point USA, the conservative youth organization co-founded by Kirk in 2012. Kirk was shot and killed Wednesday while speaking on stage at Utah Valley University. His killer is still at large. The city of Chicago is proposing a $90 million settlement to resolve 176 wrongful conviction lawsuits tied to disgraceful former police sergeant Ronald Watts. The suits were filed by people who claim their convictions were based on fabricated evidence from Watts and his team. Their convictions have been vacated. The proposed payouts will be presented next week for approval at the Committee on Finance meeting before being voted on by the full city council. Several top Illinois officials are demanding answers from the White House about the usage of the Naval Station Great Lakes for its immigration operation. The Sun-Times reports that U.S. Representative Brad Schneider and U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin sent a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The trio demanded to know how the base would be used and for how long. They also requested that federal agents properly identify themselves while operating in the state. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants with medical PPO insurance? It's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
In one horrific act of violence, a voice of freedom has been lost. Charlie Kirk was the leader of a groundbreaking movement for patriotism in this country, and the country will sorely miss his guidance. We pray for Charlie's family as they battle through this sudden loss. Rest in peace to an American hero, Charlie Kirk. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
Most investments today feel like second jobs. Real estate, you're a landlord. Stocks, you're a day trader. Crypto, you're a full-time researcher. You've got a life to live. Your investment should help you live it. That's why more Americans are choosing gold. Noble Gold has helped thousands protect their future with real physical gold. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to get your free wealth protection kit. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals, including gold, involves risks. Consult with your tax attorney or financial professional before making an investment decision.
Since 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been supporting America's greatest heroes and their families. Heroes like Mark Holbert. Mark enlisted in the United States Army and served multiple tours, including 3 in Afghanistan. On his 4th tour, he stepped on an improvised explosive device and lost 2 of his fingers and both legs. Tunnel to Towers provided Mark with a mortgage-free smart home, which enables Mark to live more independently. Support America's heroes, like Mark. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at t2t.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos. Fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
Honey, the check engine light just came on and it's making that weird clunking sound again. This is all we needed before vacation. I just know this is going to be a huge repair bill, and our factory warranty expired last month.
Don't you worry your head about it, dear. Remember a few weeks ago when I was looking into vehicle protection plans? I signed us up for CarShield.
You did? But I thought those things were expensive and complicated.
Not CarShield. They have a low-cost month-to-month plan, and it covers our out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Plus, it includes free roadside assistance, free towing, and even car rental options at no additional cost.
Are you serious? So we won't have to pay for covered repairs again?
That's right. They even said we'd pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. It was so easy to get a free quick quote. Now we can focus on our trip instead of repair bills.
Don't wait for a breakdown to realize you need coverage. If you own a vehicle with an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, call CarShield now for your free quick quote. Call 800-330-8323. That's 800-330-8323. Call CarShield now and future-proof your ride. 800-330-8323. Again, 800-330-8323.
Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly. Each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
From the Team Hawkburg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 14 minutes, outbound 13 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 11 minutes, outbound is about 9 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 14 minutes, outbound is 14 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 22 minutes, outbound is about 16 minutes. On the Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, 13 minutes, outbound is about 10 minutes. This traffic update is quickly delivered to you by Quick Delivery Service. Why are you sitting in Friday traffic? Time is money. When you need your important items delivered quickly, Quick Delivery Service will be there to pick it up and take it to its destination. Go to quickdelivery.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be very warm with a mix of sunshine and clouds, reaching a high of 85. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn with a low of 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I just want to pick up on the point that Sean Spicer made that we were discussing at the end of last hour. the difference between the left and the right, as exemplified on college campuses, is I can peacefully coexist with people who disagree with me, said Sean Spicer. I live in Northern Virginia. I do it every day. But they can't and won't peacefully coexist with people with whom they disagree. And nowhere is this more stark than on a college campus, where the left is in control. Well, leftist students are in control of most of college campuses today. Administration fears their own students, so does the professorate, if they're not completely aligned. And in many cases, they are. And conservatives are generally unwelcome, have to fight for space on campus, and certainly for their views to be allowed, much less considered. So what is happening on college campuses? A little bit of comparison contrast to just underline and put an exclamation point next to the observation from Sean Spicer. Well, yesterday, campus vigils around the country. At Duke, a vigil of about 80 people near the school's chapel included American flags and a cross formed out of candles. The president of the College Republicans there, no political cause ever justifies bloodshed. When politics becomes a battlefield of hatred instead of ideas, democracy itself begins to die. About 100 students came out at the University of Oklahoma saying America the Beautiful while passing flames from candle to candle. The head of the school's College Republicans there said, "Do we continue down this extremist path, or do we try to have a healthy debate like Charlie Kirk would have wanted us to?" Dozens of cadets at Citadel Military College in South Carolina sang, prayed, read scripture. I have a friend whose daughter's at College of Charleston there in South Carolina as well. She said, he said that she had started a Turning Point chapter there. That students were coming out in droves and getting Turning Point material and expressing interest in participation. Productive activities. Liberty University, saw a video of that, huge vigil at Liberty University, and it was students embracing one another, singing, peacefully conducting a vigil. That was on one side. On the other side, the left, some examples of the left, not all, but some. Are you ready for these man-on-the-street interviews at the University of Texas at Austin? UT students asked about Charlie's assassination by a enterprising online reporter, if you will. This is how that went.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Wow. Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Wow. That's good. That's good that people are getting shot just off a political view. Good that people are dying in America.
Did you see that Charlie Kirk got shot and killed today?
Yes, I did.
How do you feel about that?
I don't really have any feelings about it. Who are you?
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it. And that's how I feel at this point in time. But
I appreciate your honesty. I truly do. So you said someone had to do it.
Yes. Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
So if you had a magical wand, a magical button that you could press and keep him from being assassinated, would you press that?
No. I think things happen for a purpose. And if that's how his life was ended, then that's how it was ended. So.
You see the point that Sean Spicer is making? Here's a Boise State undergrad a sophomore, reacting to Charlie Kirk's assassination.
You're what you deserve. I just saw the video
looks like he got shot in the neck or chest. I mean, I'm not saying I wish death upon someone, but that's what I'm saying for this mother piece of shit. I hope he's dead. Is that gonna get me arrested? I hope he's not dead. I don't know. Pray for Charlie Kirk. I don't know. And he's a huge advocate for gun rights. If that is an irony, I don't know what is. Today's a good day. Today's a good day.
Gee, where do they get this from? American University adjunct instructor literature. I just saw a very thoughtful Insta post from someone who has unimpeachable politics, but I had to stop listening when he mentioned the kids. There's a lot of children I feel bad for, but I can't bring myself to feel bad for these. They lived with an abuser. He might have raised them to be killers. Talking about Charlie Kirk and his 2 young kids. It's a literature instructor at American University. University of Michigan Assistant Professor Charles H.F. Davis said that even if you believe violence isn't the answer, it is a solution, especially to the violent conditions and violent rhetoric spewed by empowered people that create them. Charlie Kirk is a reminder of 2 things. Your words don't skip consequences. They just collect interest. And lastly, empathy has boundaries. Good luck. John in Crown Point, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hi, Dan. Love your show, buddy. Hey, when I went to college in the early 80s, we never talked about politics. In fact, I probably don't even know who the president was. It probably was Reagan, I think. But what has changed since then? What's the influence? Is it social media? Is it the phones? I mean, what is it? I don't understand.
Well, it's thanks for the call, John. It's not the channels, it's the content. I mean, the channels just offer quicker and more widespread distribution of the content, but it's the content, it's the quality of the intellectual capacity, the quality of the understanding of what it means to live in a free society. So I suppose it has a lot to do with family and pre-K through post-secondary education. If it's about people's understanding of what it means to be a responsible citizen in a free society, then where is that knowledge imputed? From where is it imputed? Family, school. So I suppose we have to look there, don't we? Jerry, Milwaukee.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. On the subject of this is everybody's problem. No, it isn't. It's the left's problem. And I remember years and years ago, I had to attend all these conferences on violence in the community. And it was all the CEOs out in the audience and black community activists lecturing them from the podium about how this is everybody's problem, the violence. No, it's not. It's in the black community. That's where the problem. And these CEOs would just sit there in silence. And I remember once getting up and saying, no, this is not all of our problem. It doesn't happen in my community. It happens in the black community. And there was deathly silence then. And then you'd move on to the next question. It just amazes me how we are just co-opted by all these folks. And no, the violence is on one side, and that's it.
Well, thanks for the call, Jerry. I mean, the violence is rationalized by one side. Look, violence, even though it is disproportionately, violent crime, but black men commit a disproportionate amount of violent crime. It's just the statistics. But that's not the black community. I don't like that phrase either. We use that too much. Because the black community is mostly law-abiding, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic way like mostly peaceful protests. I mean it literally, like statistically. And they're not in community with criminals any more than I am or you are. That's not a community. The communities are people who are law-abiding and people who are not. You're in a community of criminals. I'm in a community of the law-abiding. That is multiracial. So I think we need to be careful with that too. We're in community based on belief and behavior. The identitarians are in community with people who share non-behavioral characteristics regardless of their behavior. You see the distinction? Because it's a critical one. Rick in Joliet.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. I know you're going to set me straight on this, and frankly, I'm looking to you for a little guidance here. And I hope I don't embarrass myself, because this is not something that I've believed in long term. You know, in a relationship, especially with a woman, I have found when her interest level drops below 50%, the relationship is doomed. And in regards to this country now, I've always believed that a nation divided against itself cannot stand. But I am struggling now because I desire divorce. I am below 50% interest level in talking with these people, in rationalizing with these people. I don't want them near my business, my home, my church, my community, my family. And I can't shake this feeling anymore. And frankly, you know, what happened to Charlie Kirk, I believe, is what pushed me below that threshold. I'll let you comment. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Rick. Well, yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, it's an understandable reaction, particularly because of just the level of scar tissue that's been piled up. I don't know if I'm familiar with that metaphor, as I don't know that I've ever had a woman have more than 50% interest in me. So it's a little bit of a reach for me. But what I would say is it is a small percentage of a big number, and that's a big problem. I know I say that all the time because it's always true when I say it. So what I'm talking about is that, you know, it's the committed few move history. And the committed few have moved the history of the Democratic Party into being a revolutionary Marxist party that platforms violence. Simple as that. But that doesn't mean, and you have a bunch of enablers, and they bear some culpability, as we've discussed at some length. But, well, two things. I mean, one is, you know, you can peacefully coexist without having to engage people you don't want to engage in. I have no interest in communicating with you. I have no interest in participating in this thing or that thing. I mean, that's part of living in a free society, the right to exclude and the right to exclude yourself. I'm not saying that's the most productive way, because I think, you know, part of this is, and we've talked about this, and particularly in a heightened way over the last couple of days since Charlie was assassinated, is that you want to draw them in and engage them, and perhaps for the purpose of enlightening them, perhaps for the purpose of exposing them, among others, as having the weaker argument. You know, there is utility in that. And as Charlie and Turning Point have demonstrated on college campus, there's a lot of interest, especially on college campuses where you have a lot of people, where you have a lot of young people that don't know very much, but they're interested to know more. They want to learn. They want to have an understanding of the world around them. They want to be able to speak intelligently on important issues of the day that they hear other people talking about, but they don't really know what to say because they don't really know much about it, and they don't know where to get information. They don't know who's telling the truth or who's making sense. So, I mean, this is, you know, words are the currency of politics, as a great man once said. That was me. And so we have to use them. We can't just all live hermetic lives or spend all our time on a golf course. That's what I do. But we can't all do that. So, I don't know about a great divorce. I mean, I think you just have to exercise some judiciousness. Is this a person or a group or an outlet that is fair-minded, and we can have discourse, or is it not? And so I'm not going to waste my time because my time's valuable. It's a judgment call. The judgment call we make every day as adults. That's all. Jan in Hoffman Estates.
Hi, the problem we're having with the society is that we're a free society and we're supposed to self-govern ourselves. And the left knows that if they present this overwhelming force, we're pretty much, they're burning down cities and everything. So the fact is they have to lock these people up. If there's this terrorism, if there's this, destroying of property, then they have to be locked up. And it's been going on for years, and nobody's been charged, just like since the George Floyd, where 30 people got killed and billions of dollars were spent and not one person went to jail. And they know that they can get away with it. So I hope that, and plus, the people that go to college are stupider than most people. I hate to say that, unless they went there to learn something that they can actually gainfully employ themselves with. But I don't know what to say, but Charlie Kirk was a good guy. And I'm still in mourning over him.
Thanks for the call, Jan. Paul in Plainfield.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that this doesn't come just from the silly men on the street or those people that are irrelevant to the conversation. I'm talking more, this comes from the top down, from Democrats in power that has that same ideology and that same thought. Good, he's gone. You don't see that on the other side. As the last caller just mentioned, George Floyd, Republicans aren't going out there and destroying the world over the loss of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, right. Thanks for the call. Right. Yeah, right. I mean, that's the contrast on campus right now. Midnight vigils versus the venom that is attendant to culture on campus. And from the students and the professors, well, unsurprisingly, they complement one another in the most vile ways. It's also, too, I mean, there's a website that's already been put up, Charlie's Murderers, exposing civil servants, educators, community leaders, business people, all saying things as vile or more than what you just heard. And it's not to inspire any sort of retributive violence, but just to know that the florist or the vet in your community is a complete knucklehead, and maybe you don't want to support that business. Your call. But yeah, there is a cultural sickness, and it's not just expressed in violence, although that's the most pernicious form of it. It's also expressed in just the rank, lowbrow ugliness, rhetorically and in behavior that is not technically violent, but certainly uncivil. They have an unreasonable position. They have an unreasonable understanding of the world around them, of what it means to live in a free society, of peaceful pluralism. They have chosen unreason. And unkindness, as Chesterton observed, immediately follows. It is the only way to enforce unreason with the logical, with the rational, with the considered. Unreasonable, unkind, the two are wedded. And that's what you're saying. Tom and us, we go.
Yes, good morning, Dan. Yeah, it's a difficult day. I think you spoke about, just not speaking to some of these people, and one of your callers said about the 50%. I've got 3 adult children, all well-rounded, very educated. One's in the field of law, one's a teacher. These are smart kids. And after this happened, I think they felt this way before, and I know that, but I think this was sort of a turning point, to use a word. After this happened, we talked about what was going on, and I really feel that there's a just sort of a despair among kids like my children who have this feeling that they're not giving up. They're very smart kids, but they don't know even who to talk to anymore. My oldest son, who's in the field of law, is bombarded by this constantly. He called me a year ago, when Trump was elected, and said, "Dad, I don't know if I even want to be here anymore in this office." He wanted to quit. And this is how bad it's gotten now, and they can't escape it. So, and I'm in the business world, so I'm out in the field all day talking with people. I don't even bring up politics with people I deal with because I don't know left or right how they feel, and I don't care. But it's become so toxic now, and it's very difficult to stay positive. I'm an eternal optimist, but to motivate my children to stay positive, it's gotten tougher and tougher. And like my oldest son, we talked after this happened, and he said, "Dad, I feel we're at a turning point." This is a 33-year-old man. He's very intelligent and very calm. But he says, "Dad, something's going to happen. Something's going on out here." And he didn't know what. He couldn't put his finger on it. I said, "Matt, you know what? I agree. Something is going on. I don't know what it is. I don't live in fear. I don't wake up every morning, worrying about what's going to happen today. I'm a faithful person. I believe that my life has already been laid out. So whatever God's plan is for me, I'm going to live it." But a lot of these younger people, I fear for them because they're like lost out there right now.
Thanks for the call, Tom. Tina in Joliet.
Hi. So, one thing I want to say, Rick from Joliet, completely agree. Divorce, they get the cats, we get to keep the dogs. Put up a wall, we're done. I would be completely fine with that. I don't. If I never had to talk to another liberal again in my life, I would be okay.
Well, you might want to move out of the Chicagoland area then. That's the only problem.
It's so brutal. So I called the other day, and it's so funny because my son used that word radicalized. He said to me, he's like, "Mom, I have to get off the internet for a while because it's radicalizing me." And what he meant by that is if you spend any amount of time on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you will see the most vile, despicable, disgusting comments, not just from the weirdos with the purple hair. But
academics and
professional.
This is professional people. No, we've got it all here, right?
And it is so. I mean, we've watched it now for 10 years, and it hits a fever pitch at this point that you cannot deny it. So I had somebody say to me yesterday, chastising me a little bit, like, "No, you can't stop talking. We have to continue the conversation." Blah. And while I agree, yes, but I don't want to have the same conversation with them that they want to have with me. We need to have an honest conversation, and they do not. How do you talk to people who are unwilling to admit that there's a problem? You can't.
Well,
if you go to couples therapy and you're not honest with your therapist, it ain't helping.
Thanks for the call, Tina. Well, I mean, yeah, I hear you, but I mean, that's what I said. It's a difficult thing because it's a one-on-one proposition, or it's a small group proposition. So, yeah, that's true. You have to find people that you can constructively engage with when a disagreement arises, or when they say something intemperate in a setting in which you are a part and you rise to the occasion. Yeah, I hear that. I do. But it's important, I know that the like, "Oh, I don't even want to look at that. I don't even want to listen to this." But it's important to understand exactly what we're up against. It's important to understand what is actually the dynamic in proportion. I always try to bring proportionality to it. But these are not inventions These people exist. They are saying these things. They are enabling horrible, horrible things. They are spreading unkindness and incivility that is destructive of the social fabric. So, it's not a single-tiered approach, but there has to be a nonviolent confrontation with this element in American society. There has to be. Coming up at 6:36, we're going to turn our attention to the manhunt and the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination. Eric O'Neill, former FBI counterterrorism and counterintel, joins us at 6:36. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 62 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. The State Department is warning it may revoke the visas of foreigners who glorify violence after the assassination of former SRN Salem radio talk show host and political activist Charlie Kirk.
On Thursday, Deputy Secretary of State Chris Landau said foreigners who glorify violence and hatred are not welcome visitors to our country. He added he was disgusted to see some on social media praising, rationalizing, or making light of the event. Landau said consular officials have been told to undertake appropriate action. Kirk was fatally shot Wednesday while holding a rally in Utah. The suspect remains at large. I'm Mark Mayfield.
The former White House press secretary under President Biden is scheduled to testify today in the GOP probe of Biden's mental fitness in office.
Karine Jean-Pierre previously agreed to do a closed-door interview, but it's unknown if she will plead the fifth and not answer questions. The probe has been focused on Biden's mental decline and the use of an auto pen. Republicans say the use of the auto pen may make some of Biden's pardons void. I'm Brian Shook.
News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Hugh Hewitt warns that China is flexing.
Xi Jinping has capped a week of frenetic diplomacy by presiding over one of China's biggest military parades, projecting his nation's growing power in a show of solidarity with fellow strongman Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Everyone's got to pay attention to what China is doing and what China is saying, and it's very ominous.
The Hugh Hewitt Show, afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Don't get stuck with a cold shower this fall. Give CenterGuard Plumbing a call. Get a new 40-gallon water heater installed for just $1,195 for standard installation, or a 50-gallon heater for $1,295 standard installation. A proud new sponsor of AM 560, CenterGuard is offering specials on new water heaters. Don't wait. The cold temperatures are coming, and the same can happen to your water heater. If you're having hot water issues or your water heater's over 8 years old, take advantage of this fall special today. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon, and they can schedule your repair or install the same day on in-stock water heaters. They'll even haul away your old one, no charge. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM 560 to receive fall special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Hey, this is Sean Thompson. You know, there's an old joke about Uncle Sam's tax short form. The first line says, "How much did you make?" The next line says, "Send it in." Sadly, that's not funny at all for honest people who pay taxes. But that's exactly what a lot of people do in their retirement. They take money out of their 401k and their IRA, and they send it into the IRS. Tom Fortino of Alpha Wealth Group believes there's a better plan for your retirement than Uncle Sam's plan of send it in. What if your current plan includes thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes and fees? What if you're headed for higher Medicare payments, lower Social Security checks? What if the savings you may realize allows you to retire even earlier? Wouldn't you want to know all of that right now? Call Tom Fortino and the team at Alpha Wealth Group and find out today. Call 630-864-6711. The number again, 630-864-6711. You can also visit alphawealthgroup.com to schedule your no-obligation consultation.
This is Dennis Prager for AmFed Coin and Bullion. There's something about the feel of a gold coin in your hand and the way the light reflects off its intricate details that has always captivated me. Nick Grovich, AmFed's owner, turned that same passion into his livelihood. Nick began collecting coins as a teen, and that interest grew into a nationally respected business offering only the finest quality coins at the most competitive prices. But the truth is that although Nick is a rare coin dealer, he doesn't believe in rare coins. Rare coins do not make sound investments, but they do make dealers a lot of money. See, that's part of what I respect about him. AmFed specializes in buying non-performing numismatic coins and turning them into gold or silver investments that provide liquidity and perform competitively against the market. Whether you're buying or selling, call 800-221-7694. That's 800-221-7694. AmericanFederal.com.
If you want thick, healthy, gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. Available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com or in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
From the Team Hawkberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 15 minutes, outbound 14 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 16 minutes, outbound is about 10 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 17 minutes, outbound is 14 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 22 minutes. Outbound is about 16 minutes. And on the Dan Ryan inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, 16 minutes. Outbound is about 11 minutes. This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. What if they can guarantee the price of Bitcoin will be $1 million in 2030? Well, they can't, but they can guarantee you'll save a lot of money on blinds at their company. Blindster.com. Free samples, free shipping, and guaranteed to fit. Shop at Blindster.com today. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be very warm with sunshine blending with clouds. Expect a high of 85. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn. The low will be 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Before we get back to the manhunt and the investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination, just a quick text following up on our conversation at the top of the hour. Relative to your conversation now, as my son says, how do you begin to have a constructive conversation with someone who can't even agree that there are only two sexes? And what I would say is, on that issue or any other where there's disagreement, is probe their understanding of the position they've taken. For example, do you believe that a girl is the same thing as a boy who thinks he's a girl? Most people take positions they don't know how to explain, much less defend. So get them talking. Charlie did that on college campuses. Get them talking and watch them in so many instances. Not all the time. You have to have someone who actually is interested in dialogue and thinks that they know what they think. But if they don't know how to explain their position, much less defend it, and you do, you know both sides of the argument, you're likely to get them to walk themselves into an intellectual dead end. And that's when the light goes on. Or at least, as Dennis Prager would say, they might think a second time. And that's how you move people. You know, people move around in terms of their understandings and beliefs and political choices all the time. All the time. How many people who voted for Obama in 8 and 12 voted for Trump in 16 and since? Just for example. The examples are innumerable. So that's what I would say to that. The demoralization, of course, is what the forces of illiberalism, demoralization of the rational and the civic-minded is what they want. Demoralization is how you lose your society. It's how center-right people lost Illinois. Demoralized, throw your hands up. Okay, well, the other side is happy to run the table and run the show as long as you let them. For consideration. All right, turning to the investigation, as we mentioned at the top of the show, after that FBI briefing yesterday morning, towards the end of our show, we found out some more because the FBI has found out some more. We believe they have the assassin's bolt-action rifle. They have released pictures of a person of interest they clearly believe to be the assassin. They have, they have an idea of his from video and eyewitness testimony of what the escape path was, where he was, and so the hunt is on. They also have this, or we also have this. I don't think this has been authenticated by law enforcement, but it seems authentic, and multiple media outlets have reported on it. Some sort of whitewashing it more than others, as you can imagine. But one of the things from this alleged ATF report that was leaked in discussing the Mauser 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near campus that FBI found. They add, the location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds of the top-fed magazine. And then this. All cartridges have engraved wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. We had Jim Fitzgerald on the show at the end of the show yesterday, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show today, and he, interestingly, the famed criminal profiler he is, said would not be surprised to learn that this was trans-adjacent, inspired, would not be surprised to find that the assassin has a manifesto or something of that sort, has writings or political observations that explain the motivation, and it seems to be going in that direction. For more on where it is and where it's going and what we should anticipate, pleased to be joined by Eric O'Neill, former FBI agent in counterterrorism and counterintelligence. Eric O'Neill, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan, it's good to be on the show.
So, give us your review of what we learned from the FBI yesterday and how you think this case is coming together, this investigation is coming together.
Certainly. Well, if we were talking yesterday morning or yesterday afternoon, I would have said that the FBI would have caught this guy by last night. I woke up surprised that they haven't, which concerns me. That suggests that this single individual who was able to make a pretty long-range shot, it was about 200 meters, which is a long shot for someone who hasn't shot before. So that suggests that he has at least some training in firearms. It suggests to me that maybe he had some help in getting away, because this is an extraordinary manhunt with the FBI, local police, the marshals are now involved. ATF has been assisting. That's a lot of LEO or law enforcement officers on the ground trying to capture this single shooter. So I'm hoping they get him soon.
One of the yeah, sure, we all are. One of the things that was also reported is that the number of tips the FBI has received is an all-time high. Unsurprisingly, I guess, with all of the attention associated with this. But I wonder, does that slow down the investigation as trying to discern credible tips from tips that are not credible and running all these traps in all these different directions?
It can. Now, remember, the comparable is probably the Boston Marathon bombing. That was the second most number of tips. This has eclipsed that. I think I saw one report that there were 7,000 some tips that came in. And, of course, that's a lot of work for personnel, law enforcement personnel, to go through the tips to try to find out what is actionable intelligence versus what is, someone saw somebody wearing black walking down the street.
Yeah. Right.
And remember, those tips might also be video, and they have to go through the video. It's, in the old days, you would call and say, I think I saw somebody near this convenience store, right? But today it's Ring cameras, it's home security cameras, it's cell phone images, and a lot of that gets sent in and has to be sifted through. The neat thing about today is AI can help law enforcement, and there are databases that allow them to quickly go through a lot of that data. But still, that is an enormous number of tips from a well-meaning population who really wants this shooter caught.
Yeah, we're talking to Jim Gagliano, who was former FBI, yesterday, and he was also talking about the physical topography on that college campus and around that college campus. The open parking lot behind the building where he could have escaped, a major expressway not far, and so he could have been miles away relatively quickly while everybody was still in a chaotic situation. And I just wonder, so how does the FBI try to put a timeline and a perimeter around where they're searching in order to really zero in on places that he is most likely within the vicinity of at any given the distance and time from the actual assassination?
Well, the first thing that they need to do is what they would have done is close down or monitor the major points of travel. So they're going to lock down airports, bus stations, anywhere that he could get on some sort of public transportation and move quickly. They're going to widen a search cordon, so a wide perimeter where they think that based on time, if he was in a car, he could drive, and try to monitor any cars that are leaving on major highways. It's complicated. Now, the one thing they do know from the wealth of information that's been recovered, most of it on video from the campus, is the direction he left. And I suspect that law enforcement took a gamble that he was still in the neighborhood surrounding the school, and it appears that was not true, or at least they haven't found him. So one of two things has happened here, Dan. Either he's gone to ground and he's hiding really well, or he got in a car, or someone picked him up and he's on the road somewhere. But either way, I think they find him. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I would tend to believe that as well. But I mean, do we? There wasn't any indication. Maybe I missed it, that they have a car identified. Do they?
No. But I'm just looking at the shooter and the way that he executed this shooting. It was it clearly shows a wealth of planning.
Yeah.
He used a very overpowered gun for the shot. That 30-06 is a cannon. It can cause an immense amount of damage. So he certainly wanted to make sure that one shot he had with that bolt-action rifle, he wasn't going to get another one before Charlie Kirk's close protection pulled him out of harm's way, would do the job. He didn't even rack his bolt. He immediately left the roof. He had his exit point mapped out. He knew where he was going to go. And there even very recently a new security camera footage from a neighborhood house is showing him at about 9:50 in the morning on the way to the campus limping, which suggests that it's possible he had that long gun shoved down his pants leg, which is the only way I could see him getting that Mauser bolt-action rifle into the college campus. So, if he had all of this planning in place to take the shot, that suggests that he would have planned his exfiltration. He would have planned his escape from the shooting just as carefully.
It's just, it's a little surprising, and I don't pretend to know the landscape there in Utah and around that college, but it's just surprising that you've got, everybody chaotically scrambling, and you see a lot of video of it, and then one guy climbing down off the roof, which we see some video of, and then escaping, and that you don't pick up whether it was a motorized bike or a car, somewhere some traffic camera doesn't pick up a number of cars that could narrow the search, and you could go, car by car if you can identify the plates and figure out whose they were and really zero in on, his means of escape.
Right. Well, we don't know everything that law enforcement has. They release, bits of it as they think the public has a need, but they're not going to release everything. I would bet they have better pictures of him. They have additional video that hasn't been released, and I just, the way that I see this is they thought they would have him a lot faster than they did, and now there's this larger appeal to the population to send in tips. So they're inviting this because they need that help.
Your background in counterterrorism and counterintel, are we going to see law enforcement after this case is resolved have a internal or external or a combination of the two conversation about what sorts of security should be at what sorts of venues for particular speakers in these days and times? Like I understand the FBI doesn't have the resources to cover every conservative speaker or controversial speaker, but I mean, just in terms of best practices that you have sort of federal, state, local, campus having conferences and communications about best practices to implement?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that has been coming up a lot recently. I think the location that Charlie Kirk picked is an incredibly difficult one to defend against a shooter. If you want to draw a comparison, you can to Trump's ill-fated,
Butler.
Speaking engagement in Butler, right, where that was a difficult place for even Secret Service and Homeland Security to defend against a shooter. Now, we could get into that. There's no reason that shooter was on that roof, but a college campus security and local law enforcement don't have the resources to have counter snipers, to have a law enforcement asset on every rooftop where a shooter could be, and that was a risk that Charlie Kirk, and I think knowingly, having seen some of his interviews in the past about this, said that he accepted the risk of being in an open environment like that. I think in the future for someone of that caliber, politically, particularly one that's a political firebrand, we'll probably see a change in venue. For example, if you go inside, which I know Charlie Kirk did not want to do, it's a lot easier to secure an internal auditorium. You have, certain points of entry and exit that law enforcement or security can protect. Or a stadium. Stadiums tend to be more secure because they have doors to get in. Many of them have metal detectors. A college campus stadium that you can secure the same way would have given him that open air ability to, sit in a courtyard-like environment, but still allow security to provide a lot more protection. So maybe the solution is to do what all of the big performers and rock stars do and use the college stadiums rather than courtyards.
Eric O'Neill, former FBI counterterrorism and counterintel agent. Eric, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Chicago businesses. Your phone, internet, and IT should work well 24/7. But when it doesn't, who are you calling? At Overseas Help Desk? If you want clear, reliable local experts, consider Access One. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One has you covered. Access One is Chicago-owned, Chicago-run, and serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore and everywhere in between. We're rated top 5% in customer satisfaction, a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business, and trusted by law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. Let's talk about making your IT work well. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneInc.com. That's accessoneInc.com. Tech made personal locally.
Exclusive interviews, bold commentary, and behind-the-scenes insights into stories that the mainstream media won't cover. It's the Unshaken and Unafraid podcast with Joe Pags on the Salem Podcast Network.
You guys know better than anybody that you just can't compete on an equal level playing field with somebody of the opposite gender. It's just not fair. That's a fact.
Subscribe today on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, or at SalemPodcastNetwork.com. AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 7:07, timely book. Bill O'Reilly, host of No Spin News. His new book, Confronting Evil, Assessing the Worst of the Worst. Give you a sort of a thematic. What do we do when confronted by evil? Do we confront? Do we rise to the occasion, or do we turn away? Bill O'Reilly, 7:07.
We're about to hear from President Trump. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. He's going to go on TV right now on Fox and Friends as the manhunt continues for Charlie Kirk's assassin.
I spoke to Erica, his wife, and we had a long talk, and she's devastated. She's absolutely devastated, as you can imagine.
The president will honor Kirk posthumously with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he plans to attend the conservative's funeral. It is day 3 of the manhunt for the gunman.
We've been working with our attorneys, getting everything that we need, affidavits ready, so that we can pursue the death penalty in this case.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox.
The FBI making an urgent plea for the public to help identify the person of interest.
Fox's CB Cotton outside Utah Valley University, where Kirk was murdered. They've recovered the rifle. There are new videos out. One shows the gunman running after the shooting, and another that TMZ got,
which appears to show the person of interest walking by several neighborhood surveillance cameras. TMZ says this video was captured at 11:49 a.m. local time, and we know the FBI previously said the shooter first entered campus at 11:52 a.m. Less than an hour later, the suspect fired off the fatal shot.
Later this hour, Ryan Ruth's trial resumes in the second Trump assassination attempt last year. Ruth's defending himself, and his opening statements to the jury didn't last long.
After approximately 7 minutes of rambling, Judge Cannon cut him off, saying, quote, "We have limited patience, and you do not have unlimited license to go forward and make a mockery of the dignity of this courtroom." Now, the government's first 5 witnesses took the stand yesterday, including Secret Service agent Robert Furcano, who spotted Ruth's weapon pointing at him through the fence.
Fox's Dana Marie McNichol outside the court in Fort Pierce, Florida. Days after Russia's war in Ukraine spilled across the border into Poland, where some Russian drones were shot down, France has deployed fighter jets to Poland. Britain has imposed new sanctions on Russia. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning. It's 63 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Flags across the state will be flown at half-staff in honor of Charlie Kirk. Governor Pritzker announced this action after the conservative activist was shot and killed while speaking at a college campus in Utah. Flags in Illinois were already set to fly at half-staff in honor of Patriots Day, which was linked to the 2001 9/11 terrorist attacks, but President Trump made the order to fly the flags at half-staff through Sunday. Several top Illinois officials are demanding answers from the White House about the usage of the Naval Station Great Lakes for its immigration operations. The Sun-Times reports that U.S. Representative Brad Schneider and U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin sent a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The trio demanded to know how the base would be used and for how long. They also requested that federal agents properly identify themselves while operating. Chicago police are investigating the deaths of 2 people in the Loop. Authorities say 2 males were found unresponsive yesterday inside a home in the first block of East Adams Street. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy is pending. A teen is accused of killing another teen on the south side in June. Cook County prosecutors charged the 18-year-old suspect with murder and armed robbery in the shooting death of 17-year-old D'Angelo Miles. The victim was found in an alley in West Pullman with a gunshot wound to the head on June 1st. He had recently graduated from Hansberry College Prep. The suspect was arrested on Tuesday in Lake Forest. News is a service of Air Ride Heating and Cooling, offering AM 560 listeners $56 off of any service, including inspections. Don't wait for a heat wave for that old air conditioner to break down. Visit Air Ride Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Check out the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Larry Elder thinks the media is being ridiculous.
There was a hashtag called Trump is dead, and it was trending. The same people who covered up for Biden for years are concerned that the president, who held 3 consecutive press conferences recently in one day, takes a little bit of time off, and he's not being transparent about his health.
The Larry Elder Show. Weeknights at 8, right before Sean Hannity at 10 on AM 560. The Answer.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Since 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been supporting America's greatest heroes and their families. Heroes like Mark Holbert. Mark enlisted in the United States Army and served multiple tours, including 3 in Afghanistan. On his 4th tour, he stepped on an improvised explosive device and lost 2 of his fingers and both legs. Tunnel to Towers provided Mark with a mortgage-free smart home, which enables Mark to live more independently. Support America's heroes, like Mark. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Christian Faith Publishing helps thousands of authors just like you publish their books with a company dedicated to strong Christian values. And to help you get started, we want to send you our free writer's guide, packed with tips, tricks, and templates for authors. Christian Faith Publishing reviews every book submitted to us. And if your book is approved, we'll edit, design, print, promote, and distribute your book online and in stores everywhere. Imagine seeing your book in specialty Christian bookstores, Amazon, iTunes, Barnes & Noble, and many others. It all starts with a completed manuscript and one call to Christian Faith Publishing at 888-521-4447. If you have a novel, children's book, poetry, biography, or any inspirational work you've written, we can help you get it published today. Shouldn't you work with a publisher who shares your Christian values of integrity and honesty? You can get your book published. Get your free writer's guide today. Call 888-521-4447. That's 888-521-4447. 888-521-4447.
From the Team Hawkburg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 16 minutes. Outbound is about 14 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Vernon interchange, about 20 minutes. Outbound is about 15 minutes. On the Eisenhower, inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 25 minutes. Outbound, 20 minutes. On the Stevenson, inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 34 minutes, outbound 21 minutes. On the Dan Ryan, inbound from 95th to the Burn interchange, 18 minutes, outbound is about 11 minutes. Traffic is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants? With medical PPO insurance, it's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a quick check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be very warm with sunshine blending with clouds. Expect a high of 85. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn. The low will be 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, powered by Breakthrough Ideas. Sunday evening at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft, and we've got some breaking news. We were just talking to former FBI counterintel and counterterrorism agent Eric O'Neill, and talking about how the FBI was soliciting tips because they hadn't found the suspect in the Charlie Kirk assassination yet. Well, President Trump on Fox and Friends just a few moments ago.
Essentially, somebody that was very close to him turned him in. And that happens when you had some of those good shots. Somebody is going to say, whether it's a parent or whatever, I'd rather not say right now. They're going to announce it today, sometime later, probably talk about that. But somebody close to him turned him, they said, whoa.
So Trump just announcing that they have, the FBI has who they believe to be Charlie Kirk's assassin now in custody. And as you heard, they will announce the details later today. So we'll update that information as it becomes available, if new information becomes available before we're off the air this morning. Well, this dovetails very well, even though it's in a disturbing way, with Bill O'Reilly's new book. Bill O'Reilly's new book is Confronting Evil, Assessing the Worst of the Worst. And it's really a question that we're grappling with in real time. We always are, but it's particularly poignant in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, which is, what do we do when we're faced with evil? Do we look away? Do we get involved to do what is right? And some historical perspective as he goes through some of the most evil people who ever walked the planet. Bill O'Reilly is the host of No Spin News, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time at BillO'Reilly.com. And he joins us now. Bill, thanks for being with us.
Dan, thanks for having me back. How are you?
Well, obviously we're having a conversation in disturbing times, but I just want to get your reaction to, the news that the shooter is in custody.
No, not a surprise. The FBI in America is the finest law enforcement agency in the world, and a guy like this can't get away. But when people do things like this, most of the time they are finished. They don't want to live anymore. So if they're an evil person, they want to take as many people with them, or they want to make a statement, or cause as much havoc as they can before they give up their own life. And this guy obviously will go to trial. He get due process, but you'll never see him again. He may be executed in Utah. And he probably, on a visceral sense, knew that would happen. But the point is that when I wrote this book a year ago, we started the research and the writing. It takes a year to put out these books. I knew that we were entering a new age of evil. 1930s is the last one. And on the cover, we have Putin, we have the Ayatollah, we have Hitler, we have Mao. And 100 million people were killed because of World War II. And I could see that in America, evil is mounting. And Chicago is ground zero for a lot of it.
Yeah.
In the sense that crime was going unpunished, morals were slipping, right and wrong was not being taught in public schools. More and more mentally ill people were hitting the streets. Drug trafficking was overwhelming in certain areas. All of the combination. And I said, I got to write a book about this. And because the only way to stop it, Dan, is to confront it.
Well, as you go way back, and then come all the way to present, Caligula to the cartels to Putin, what are the common threads you see throughout history in terms of societies that allow themselves to be beset, at least for a time, by evil and evil leadership?
Two things drive evil: money and power. And it's interesting you mentioned Putin. I was with President Trump last night at Yankee Stadium for the 9/11 game. And he and I had an extensive conversation about Putin. He knows, but he didn't know. The first time around when he was president, Putin was a different man. And Trump contained him. And he thought, the president did, that when he took office again, the same situation would arise, that Putin would be reasonable. But Putin's not the same man now. And that's what always happens when you're a tyrant and you have full power and there are no restraints on you at all. You go mad.
And it's Shakespearean, yeah, right.
Yeah, Caligula, Henry VIII. I got them one after the other. And that's what happened to Putin. And, obviously, I can't tell you exactly what the president and I spoke about last night, but certainly lobbing missiles and drones into Poland is about as dangerous an act as you can possibly get. So, this is a book that's very, very important. I gave him the book, President Trump last night at the stadium. He goes, I'm going to read this right away. And I said, start with the Putin chapter. And then, of course, we talked about Charlie Kirk, because obviously every American is locked in on that. And, the president knew him, and everybody, when they hear stuff like this, they're like, they step back. How can this happen? Well, it's not hard to figure out. And both President Trump and myself have something in common, that we're in a danger zone. All right. The trial of one of his would-be assassins started this week in Miami. The other guy's dead. And in my situation, I was exactly like Charlie Kirk. Exactly. I had security living in my house at one point when I was on Fox News. And every day of my life, I know I could go. Because this is a very dangerous situation that in the United States has developed. Very dangerous. Look at all these poor people on the south side of Chicago. My God, how long is this going to go on?
Well, the Charlie Kirk thing, I think, has such resonance in part, even among people who didn't know him or follow him, in part because it represents this is what we've become kind of moment as a society.
Well, it's not our collective fault.
No, I know, but this is where things are at, and I think people, are a lot of people try to avert their eyes as much as possible to the ugliness around them, and it's difficult to avert your eyes when you see somebody assassinated like that.
That's the key, Dan. You just hit it. That evil rises and evil dominates when people look away. And in America, we're addicted to cell phones. We can create our own bubble worlds. I don't live on the south side of Chicago. I live in a much safer place, so why should I bother?
Yeah.
This kind of a thing. And in every chapter in my book, Confronting Evil, the evildoers were allowed to take power. The Russian people are allowing Putin to do what he's doing. And he's killed and wounded 1 million Russians. And the Ayatollah Khomeini, we wouldn't even have had 9/11. That never would have happened if the Persian people didn't surrender to that man. And that's a shocking thing. When you read the book, the reality becomes overwhelming. Charlie Kirk's reality is overwhelming. Then you have to make a decision. I got to get engaged. I got to get involved in my own town, my own family, my own life. I can't look away from evil. I've got to say something now. And if that happens, evil can be defeated.
And it's interesting too that you talk about the it's always with the sanction of the people in one form or the other, right? Because the evil doesn't present itself as evil; it presents itself as a false good, as Cardinal Benedict observed, Pope Benedict, excuse me, observed, and that's what sort of a lot of politicians or even despots present. They present false goods, and that's what I bought into. And the beautiful lies continue, even though the reality is particularly ugly. And I just listen to the beautiful lies so as not to confront the ugly realities. And because, I'm not party of this. I'm a good person. I don't support bad things happening. I'm a kind person. I'm a good person. And yet I'm presiding over the disintegration of cultural institutions, civic institutions, and in a free society in some respect.
Well, I'm presiding it over with my vote. I mean, people are voting for evil. I made a very controversial statement this week because that's what I do. And I said that in New York City, if you cast a ballot for this guy Mandani, that's an evil act. You may not be evil voting for him. You may not be an evil person. I'm not making that judgment. But if you give him your vote, that's an evil action. Why? Because he has looked into the television camera and said, I am not going to enforce the law. I'm going to let as many criminals out of New York City jails as I can possibly let out.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to have double the body count that you have now. And you're voting for that? So there is a responsibility that Americans have, and a lot of people don't even vote. A lot of people don't know anything. They're just stone cold stupid. And evil thrives on that.
The longshoreman turned philosopher Eric Hoffer wrote a book about mass movements, and he said there were two things that are required for there to be a mass movement in one direction or the other. Mass movement to change what the status quo is. One is people have to believe they're in charge of their own destiny. And two is they have to believe that they can improve their lot in life, their conditions. Because if those two things aren't present, what people are more likely to do is be afraid that things could actually get worse and they don't have power to change it. And so they just gripped the status quo. And I wonder if you found that in your book as well, thinking about when evil was confronted and the sort of the ingredients to that popular revolt against tyrants of yore that you tackle in the book.
Certainly in China, that was the case. The Chinese people, and throughout history, have never had one day of freedom, ever. But in the United States, it's not. People can see that in the system that we have, you can rise up, you can do amazing things, the options are there. Now, is that taught in school? No. There's a lot of victimhood. You can't make it. The oligarchs, Bernie Sanders, all of that nonsense. And a lot of people buy in. They go, oh, I can't make it. But that's not the truth. And I'm the truth. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a dime. And I'm a very wealthy person now because I worked hard and I used my God-given talents and I took advantage of the system that America has in place. But the Russian people, they don't have a lot of hope over there. So they throw in with these dictators who promise them everything and deliver violence, deliver evil, suffering, and they're trapped. And so look, there are four guys on a cover. I couldn't find a woman, Dan. I wanted to put a woman in confronting evil. I said, come on, there's got to be one woman throughout history that's risen to that level. There isn't. It's all men, 14 of them in every area you could possibly do it. And every one of them is relevant to today. Even a guy like Caligula is relevant to today. And if you understand what happened, then you'll understand evil, and then you make a decision. Do I want to go up against it in my own life, or do I want to sit it out?
Bill O'Reilly, if they're just thinking about women, Eva Peron? No, not quite.
Nah, not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, these are venal. There's a lot of venal women, a lot of,
Yeah.
But the guys that I got in there,
No,
the
they're
cartel leaders,
Yeah.
the slave traders, the robber barons, the dictators. Now they don't kill 20 million people.
Yeah.
And, when I was in China in May, his pictures everywhere. There's Mao. Hello, 20 million dead. Thanks.
Bill O'Reilly is the host of No Spin News. The 5 p.m. Chicago time, BillO'Reilly.com. Weeknights, 5 p.m. Chicago time, BillO'Reilly.com. No Spin News. The new book, Confronting Evil, Assessing the Worst of the Worst. Couldn't be more timely. Confronting Evil, Bill O'Reilly's new book. Bill, thanks as always for joining us, and good luck with another bestseller.
Always good talking with you, Dan. Thanks for having me in.
My pleasure. Bill O'Reilly joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidiscipline practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930, 630-830-4930, or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
This is Chris Stigall for townhall.com. The shocking news of Charlie Kirk's assassination strikes like a thunderbolt to the heart of America. At only 31 years old, Charlie was more than a political voice. He was a husband, a father, and a relentless champion of freedom, faith, and conservatism. I had the privilege of meeting him recently. His conviction reminded me of the same clarity and good cheer Rush Limbaugh carried into every battle. Charlie was brutally gunned down for daring to speak the truth grounded in Christian conviction in the public square. This is not just the loss of one remarkable man, it is an attack on the values that built this nation. This horror was fueled by the toxic culture of division and hate the left has encouraged for years. We grieve with Erica and their young children, but even in our sorrow, we must be resolute. The fight Charlie embodied for God, family, freedom, and America itself cannot be silenced. As we approach our nation's 250th anniversary, Charlie's mission is now ours to continue. I'm Chris Stigall.
This is Joe Cordell of Cordell & Cordell. Serving in the military requires great sacrifices, not just for one's country, but also for one's family. Not surprisingly, divorce for soldiers is especially difficult, and it raises a number of challenges that are peculiar to military divorce, things such as deployments, relocation, retirement benefits. These issues can be complicated. So if you're a soldier facing such challenges, go to CordellCordell.com.
105 West Vandalia Street, Edwardsville. CordellCordell.com.
You're great at protecting your own personal information. You probably even use things like two-factor authentication, strong passwords, VPN. But as much as you try to be in control of how your information is protected, there's lots of places that also have it. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every single second for identity threats. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock specialist is going to help solve the identity theft issues, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% off your first year with the promo code Beck at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Mike Gallagher reminding you that 80 million listeners depend on AM radio to always be on, delivering news, talk, sports, traffic, and weather reports you can trust. AM radio also delivers vital emergency information when you need it most. Text AM to 39179 and tell Congress to pass the AM radio for every vehicle Vehicle Act to keep AM radio in cars. Text AM to 39179. Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
Hi, I'm Ken Mariotti, owner of Woodland Windows and Doors, a third-generation family-owned business since 1969. We know you're bombarded by choices when shopping for new windows or doors, so we're inviting you to experience the Woodland difference. For decades, we have been transforming living spaces with Marvin Windows, a fifth-generation family business. Marvin replacement windows have been known to increase the warmth of your cold rooms by 10 degrees. Think about that, 10 degrees warmer. When you welcome Woodland into your home, you will get a product expert to transform your living spaces, full-time, dedicated professional installers that you can trust in your home, along with the best products like Marvin. These are the reasons we're proud of our 5-star reviews and family legacy. No gimmicks, no pressure, and upfront pricing are why Woodland Windows and Doors is your trusted window and door expert in Chicagoland. Visit woodlandwindows.com to book your free in-home expert consultation. That's woodlandwindows.com, or stop by our showroom at the corner of Lake and Geary in Roselle.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. And right now, AM 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty with their Generac. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Whether you are old or young, no one likes to lose money. The market is at an all-time high. How much risk does your portfolio really have in it? Are you worried that you could lose your hard-earned money? Call TJ Stearns in Arlington Heights at 800-640-2256 for your free risk report. Call right now and we will include a full analysis of your portfolio. Don't wait until it's too late. Call TJ Stearns, a local and longtime sponsor on AM 560. Call 800-640-2256. Call now and tell him AM 560 sent you.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 7:37, we'll get an update on how Operation Midway Blitz is proceeding in Chicago. Chris Clem, former HHS advisor and retired chief patrol agent, Border Patrol, joins us at 7:37 to discuss Operation Midway Blitz. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. It's 63 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. A $100,000 reward is being offered for information that leads to the arrest of the person who murdered former SRN Salem radio news talk show host and political activist Charlie Kirk.
Despite thousands of tips to an FBI hotline, no one has been arrested yet in Charlie Kirk's murder. New video released Thursday night shows the gunman jumping off a rooftop and running away from the Utah Valley University campus where Kirk had been speaking. The body of the 31-year-old founder of Turning Point was flown back to his hometown of Phoenix aboard Air Force Two with the vice president at his side. Funeral arrangements have yet to be announced. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Tensions are high on historically black colleges and universities across the nation after a day full of threats led to campus lockdowns. Classes at Alabama State University, Hampton University, Virginia State, Clark Atlanta University, Southern University, and Spelman, to name a few, were disrupted due to shelter-in-place orders. The FBI is investigating. Authorities were called out to investigate what turned out to be nothing after a bomb threat was reported at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in D.C. on Thursday. News is a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. Let Team Hochberg help you by visiting 56david.com or call 855-563-2843. That's 56david.com, lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
In one horrific act of violence, a voice of freedom has been lost. Charlie Kirk was the leader of a groundbreaking movement for patriotism in this country, and the country will sorely miss his guidance. We pray for Charlie's family as they battle through this sudden loss. Rest in peace to an American hero, Charlie Kirk.
Welcome back to Ask Hasselus. I'm Weston. What's your question?
You know when that big online store has special days with ridiculously low prices?
Yeah?
Why doesn't Hasselus Mattress do that?
We do.
You do? When?
Every day.
Okay, good one. But really, when are the big discounts?
Like I said, every day. You know our showrooms are employee-free.
So I can give your mattresses a try.
With no pushy sales guy.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that allows us to sell Sealy Posturepedic, Beauty Rest, and more for way less.
Give me numbers.
Our 35 beds from the top 5 brands start at $393. Free next day delivery, too.
And you do this every day?
Yeah. Plus, through Monday, get a free box spring with every Sealy Posturepedic, Beauty Rest, and more, or take an equal amount off an adjustable base.
Wow.
So I guess you could say now is a prime time to buy.
I see what you did there.
Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hasselus.com.
Hey Chicagoland, your trusted friend Jeff here from JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Over the past few months, I've shared how our veteran-led team serves Chicagoland homeowners. Today, I want to share with you what your neighbors are saying about working with us. Like Mary in Downers Grove, who wrote, "They listened to my concerns about moving from my home of 30 years and created a timeline that worked for me." Or Tom and Carol Stream, who said, "Their team helped me sort through 40 years of memories with respect and patience." This is why hundreds of your neighbors have given us a 5-star Google review and an A+ rating with the BBB. We don't just buy houses. We help people through life's transitions with understanding and care. No repairs needed, no cleanout required, and always on your timeline. Ready to work with the home buying team your neighbors trust? Sell your house to the trusted source by calling us at 630-895-9530. That's 630-895-9530 or jeffbuysyourhouse.com.
My friend Paula just remodeled her kitchen. I feel bad. It's so bland.
Yeah. Everyone's using the same templated designs these days or just refacing cabinets.
Let's check out Forever Remodeling. They do full and custom kitchen remodels from the ground up, just for us.
It'd be nice to have a kitchen that's truly ours.
Exactly.
Don't get the same kitchen design as everyone else. Visit Forever Remodeling today at foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com. And tell them AM 560 sent you.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere. Delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Pluto TV.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
From the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 17 minutes. Outbound, 14 minutes. On the Kennedy inbound from Montrose to the Burton Interchange, 22 minutes. Outbound, about 16 minutes. On the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 41 minutes. Outbound, 22 minutes. On the Stevenson inbound from the Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 36 minutes. Outbound is about 23 minutes. This report is sponsored by Rocket Mortgage. Homeowners, would you like to save on your monthly payments? Mortgage rates have been dropping. Visit rocketmortgage.com today to see what you could save. Call 800-863-4332 for cost information and conditions. Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS Consumer Access Org number 3030. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be very warm with a mix of sunshine and clouds, reaching a high of 85. Tonight, expect partly cloudy skies with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn with a low of 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Before we turn our attention to updating Operation Midway Blitz, just a more expansive recap of what President Trump had to say on Fox and Friends this morning about the person in custody, in federal custody, that he believes is the assassin who murdered Charlie Kirk. Provided some details and also an indication that we're going to hear from the FBI a little bit later today with more.
Any updates on the suspect?
Yeah. Can I always say, I think, just to protect us all, and so Fox doesn't get sued, and we all don't get sued, and everything else. But I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody. Right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. You know, getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. You know, it's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But, yeah, I think we're in great shape. Mr. President. He's in custody.
Well, okay, lucky, talent, and also help from somebody who knew the shooter, apparently.
Clarification, so a pastor was able to turn him in, or they got the family of the shooter to turn them in?
Well, it was a minister, and the minister went to a minister who was involved with law enforcement, by the way. And his good friend is a top U.S. Marshal, and they took it from there, and then it was a father got involved, namely his father, and said, we got to go in, and they, so I understand it, and again, subject to change, but, you know, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for, but they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now.
Did the father know about what the son had done?
I don't know. I'm going to let you get all those questions later because I can't tell you how accurate. The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
So we'll look forward to the FBI briefing later today. And if it happens before the show is out, obviously, we'll bring that information to you. Speaking of people that are being searched for and apprehended, people in this country illegally who are also public safety threats. That's what Operation Midway Blitz is all about, as we discussed earlier this week, named in honor of Katie Abraham. We spoke to her dad, Joe. Katie Abraham, a lovely young woman from Glenview who was killed along with a friend in Urbana when they were down visiting college friends by somebody in this country illegally, crashed into them, killed them, tried to flee the country, was caught in Texas, and is now facing prosecution. Other people caught Operation Midway Blitz include a 24-year-old from India who's in this country illegally and was convicted of strong-arm rape. A illegal immigrant from Mexico arrested for domestic battery, assault, and DUI. A illegal immigrant from Mexico arrested for aggravated sexual assault of a child's family member and previously convicted of DUI. As Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, in the past few days in Chicago, ICE has arrested pedophiles, rapists, abusers, armed robbers, and other violent thugs. These are the criminal illegal aliens Governor Pritzker, Mayor Johnson, and their fellow sanctuary politicians protect over the law-abiding American citizens. That's right. And they're damn proud about it, too, because as J.B. Pritzker has infamously said,
to anyone who intends to come take away the freedom and opportunity and dignity of Illinoisans, I would remind you that a happy warrior is still a warrior. You come for my people, you come through me.
Yeah, and his people, Illinoisans who are entitled to opportunity and freedom, include the pedophiles, rapists, abusers, armed robbers, and other violent thugs that were apprehended by ICE because he said so. I mean, not me saying it. He said it. That's who he was talking about. That's why Illinois is a sanctuary state. Because ICE, by contrast, not welcome here. National Guard, by contrast, not welcome here. Those are the bad people. And again, that's not me saying it.
Second, unidentifiable agents in unmarked vehicles with masks are planning to raid Latino communities and say they're targeting violent criminals. As we saw in Los Angeles, a very, very small percentage of the individuals they will target will be violent criminals. Instead, you're likely to see videos of them hauling away mothers and fathers, traveling to work or picking up their kids from school. Sometimes they will detain, handcuff, and haul away children. They are law-abiding individuals who pay taxes and contribute to the communities who feel safe going to work and attending mandatory immigration check-ins. In other words, they're following the law. We have reason to believe that Stephen Miller chose the month of September to come to Chicago because of celebrations around Mexican Independence Day that happen here every year. It breaks my heart to report that we have been told ICE will try and disrupt community picnics and peaceful parades. Let's be clear, the terror and cruelty is the point, not the safety of anyone living here.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, tell that to the child family member who was sexually assaulted by this Mexican national here illegally and protected by you, Governor. Where are those videos? Where are those videos that we were told we would see of people getting rousted, otherwise law-abiding people getting rousted by ICE and grandmas being taken away and children in cuffs and separating families and all the other histrionics? Where are your people with the videos? For more on this, please be joined by Chris Clem, former HHS advisor and retired chief patrol agent. Chris, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Happy to be on. And I literally laughed out loud when I heard that clip of Pritzker saying, "You got to go through me." That guy, he's hard to breathe. Has a hard time breathing just talking. I don't think it's going to be a problem. And boy, I'm telling you, just listening to that last statement about all the nonsense that he was spewing about these targeted criminal operations is just mind-blowing, that people believe this guy. They believe that mayor. They believe Newsom. They believe Karen Bass. This is just nonsensical left progressive rhetoric. And I got to tell you, listening to you talk about the Indian national, the Mexican national, look, 177 different countries. People entered this country illegally from 177 different countries. I've stood in detention holding facilities with 5,000 people. None of them look alike. It's actually the racist statement you can make is lumping them all to making them Latino or Hispanic. That is typical Democratic rhetoric and nonsense. They're the ones scaring people. The law enforcement's out there making the arrest of people that are bad actors, just like you mentioned, pedophiles, sexual assaults, all that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous.
Right, and characterizing ICE and by extension, National Guard, were they called in to back ICE because Sheriff's Police, I know Cook County Sheriff's Police were told that if an ICE officer is attacked, you are not allowed to come to that officer's aid. And the rank and file Sheriff's Police are aghast at that. They are completely outraged by that. But those are the orders that are given, and I'm sure that doesn't surprise you.
Yeah, that's just disheartening. I can't imagine that a sheriff would say that somebody was being assaulted and that we would not respond. I can understand politically. I don't agree with it, but I understand where these sheriffs sit sometimes. Not saying we're not supporting, but I have never in my career, and I've been in this space for over 30 years, have I heard a sheriff or anybody in law enforcement say we wouldn't respond to a federal officer being assaulted.
Well, they won't.
So
they won't.
Well,
you know how it is too. They won't say that publicly, but they said that at the briefing.
Yeah.
When ICE was coming to town.
That's why the.
Did we lose Chris? Chris?
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you cut out. You're back.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what happened. That's why everybody in the audience that's listening and everybody in the state of Illinois needs to understand why the president has to send in the National Guard. Because if the local leaders are refusing to allow resources to support federal law enforcement, then somebody's got to have their back. And no one wishes we would got to this point. But you know what? What we saw happen in Los Angeles, when you have the governor when he says we have information, that's these NGOs, these immigration advocates making up this nonsense. Oh, they're going to disrupt, a Mexican celebration. Look, let me tell you something. You're not unique in Chicago. Everybody around the country celebrates the September 16th holiday. They're going to those celebrations are going to continue, and I've never in my career have we said, hey, we're going to go to a parade and round people up. It's just spewing rhetoric and vitriol to try to justify their position, which they can't. When you look at the laundry list that Tricia McLaughlin put out about the type of people that are being targeted. And look, Dan, you and your audience know you had thousands, tens of thousands of people that were flown to Chicago and the surrounding areas that were here illegally while they were waiting for their hearings and waiting for their next steps. But they were committing crimes and they were becoming a nuisance, living in the streets and living in the subway areas. And just ridiculous that we have leaders in major cities like Chicago and states like Illinois spewing that kind of nonsense. It's not going to deter. I can guarantee it's not going to deter this administration and the men and women of federal law enforcement are going there to target these criminal individuals.
ICE is a terrorist organization. Share this if you think we should shoot them down like dogs. That was one of the postings of a 33-year-old man from suburban Chicago, Downers Grove to be specific, who is now in federal custody for facing a charge of transmitting threats in interstate commerce. Except for the shoot him down like dogs, his rhetoric is almost indistinguishable from Pritzker's.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, right? This is the problem when you have people that are emotionally and intellectually weak that can't make, heads or tails of the truth. And then you have Governor Pritzker putting that kind of information out. These emotionally weak and intellectually weak followers make those type of statements. Look, I mean, I don't want to go into, too much. We just lost an American hero in Charlie Kirk. It's because of that type of rhetoric, because people have mischaracterized what is going on out there. Charlie wanted, honest debate and was willing to debate you, but he was, castigated as a terrorist and Nazi. That's the same thing that Pritzker's doing about these ICE agents who are husbands and wives and brothers and sisters and sons and daughters that are upholding the law to keep people in Chicago and Illinois and across this country and around the world safe. That's just, it's great to have a difference of opinion. I'm okay with that. But when you start name calling people like that, knowing what this country has got so many people that are unhinged over this kind of political stuff, it's reckless. And I really hope that this guy gets indicted and he goes to jail, because unfortunately lessons have to be learned, and they got to be learned the hard way. You can't sit there and threaten people like this and get away with it.
Chris Clem, former HHS advisor, retired chief patrol agent, Customs and Border Patrol. Chris Clem, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
You got it, man. Have a great day.
You too. And Chris joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings at 7:30. Tune in and find hope as Jim Scudder explores God's Word and His world each Sunday morning right here on AM 560. The Answer.
You've probably been hearing a lot of buzz about tariffs.
I haven't.
Really?
What's a tariff?
It's a tax on imported goods.
It makes these imported goods more expensive.
Oh, that explains why I've never heard of tariffs.
Why?
Because 92.3% of the furniture at Penny Mustard is made in the USA.
True.
In fact, most of it is built by local craftsmen and women right here in the Midwest.
And locally sourced furniture will never have a tariff on it.
So when you invest in new furniture at Penny Mustard, you won't be paying extra taxes and shipping costs.
Besides, tariffs or no tariffs, our American-made Penny Mustard Strong furniture will last generations longer than IFE-made furniture shipped in from overseas.
You get so much more for your money when you buy American.
Tell me more about these tariffs.
Can we talk about this later? I'm so tired of hearing about them.
Oh, so I guess you can say that all this talk about tariffs is taxing.
I see what you did there.
PennyMustard.com.
Penny Mustard Furnishing.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank that cares about your business and is invested in your success. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Chris Johnson, CEO of Classic Cinemas and proud customer of Signature Bank. We are a local family-owned business that is known for free refills on all sizes of popcorn, soft drinks, and ices. With over 9,000 heated recliners in 16 locations, we marry the traditions of the past with today's state-of-the-art technology. Throw in a 30-minute guarantee and an after-movie mint, and you have the perfect night out. As we strive to make every guest our priority, Signature Bank does the same with their customers. The team at Signature Bank is interested in taking my company forward. They have all the resources and solutions of the big banks, but they customize their offerings to meet my business needs. The customer always comes first with Signature Bank.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
The following advertisement includes a celebrity impersonation.
The summer heat in Chicagoland is no joke. And if your old air conditioner is making funny noises, you may already know it's time for a new unit.
Look, your air conditioner, it's a disaster. People are telling me it's the worst ever.
Don't sweat it, literally. When it comes to cooling your home, Air Right Heating and Cooling does it the best.
And they love our country. Beautiful people.
Rebates are still available, financing is flexible, and at Air Right installations are smooth and professional with no surprises.
It's beautiful. Some people say it's the coolest air anyone's ever felt. I don't know. That's just what they're saying. It's doing an incredible job. Really tremendous.
Plus, tell them AM 560 sent you, and Air Right will give you $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling today at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling, doing it right since 1959.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Just in terms of knowing who people are, and since this individual is trying to make his way to Congress, running to replace Calamity Jan Schakowsky, the wife of convicted felon Creamy Bob. An interaction that Daniel Biss had with our friend Ted Dabrowski, formerly of WirePoints, who is announcing his candidacy for governor this morning, actually. So he knows what he's getting into and who he's getting into it with. I mean, you just heard Pritzker. Can't play those clips enough. Daniel Biss, the mayor of Evanston, speaking of voting for evil, as we were with Bill O'Reilly. This is back 7 years ago. Politics has moved from disagreement into rude public attacks, writes Ted Dabrowski. 7 years ago, 2018. Senator Biss and I, he was a state senator at the time, have argued public policy in the past, both in panel discussions and policy forums. We've always been on opposite sides, whether it's been pensions, income taxes, or healthcare reforms. Biss has never liked my position, and he's let me know in the past, but this time was different. He was leaving Panera, like Panera Bread, the restaurant, with a companion when he saw me, then approached me while I waited in line at the counter. The following exchange took place. Biss to his colleague, "Do you know this guy? Do you know this guy?" His companion shook her head no. "This is Ted Dabrowski. He's a horrible person." Ted writes, "I smiled thinking the opening joke was over. We'd actually have a normal exchange. But then Biss repeated emphatically, still looking directly at his colleague, 'No, I'm serious. He's a horrible person.' Still hoping things would take a better turn, I looked at his colleague and said, 'Dan and I don't agree much.' Then Dan went on and said, "We are going to destroy these guys, destroy them." At which point he turned around and walked away. His colleague, now realizing she should walk away too, seemed confused. I asked her, "Are you a candidate?" She said, "God, no." And that was that. Biss apparently thinks he can get away with such incivility toward one of his constituents, no less. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed, writes Dabrowski. I welcome and respect disagreement on issues and wider points of worldview. After all, that's what policy debates are all about. But personal attacks in public are wiping out what little civility remains in politics. If Biss feels the need to personally confront me in a public space and say he will destroy us, then, of course, wire points, policies, and approach must be threatening his narratives, which could be the reason why he's resorted to name-calling. And, of course, Ted would not respond in kind. But it's a key observation there, right? The reason that there is such vitriol directed to Charlie Kirk, even in death, is because he was dispelling the lies promulgated by the left, just as the data in Illinois easily dispels the absurd, unreasonable positions promulgated by the J.B. Pritzkers and the Daniel Bisses of the world. But not a one-person job. Engagement, participation, our conversation with Bill O'Reilly. Evil triumphs, sort of as the aphorism goes, when good men do nothing, or when people who think they're good men and women just avert their eyes. Can't be troubled. Coming up at 8:08, we're going to talk to Dr. Scott Rifkes, professor of practice at Brown School of Public Health. He's also a pediatrician and former state surgeon general in Florida. We'll talk vax policy. Then at 8:38, don't forget, Open Mic Friday. It is now 8 o'clock, AM 560, WIND Chicago.
This is a Fox News alert. The suspected gunman in Charlie Kirk's assassination's in custody. I'm Dave Anthony. President Trump broke that news on TV a short time ago, telling Fox and Friends.
I understand it, and again, subject to change, but, the facts are the facts. We have the person that we think is the person we're looking for. But they drove into the police headquarters, and he's there now.
The president says a minister and the father of the suspect played a role in his capture. We expect an update from the FBI a little later this hour from Utah, where Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist, was murdered while addressing a crowd at Utah Valley University at one of his campus events debating students. And the president also says this about the gunman.
I hope he gets the death penalty. What he did, Charlie Kirk was the finest person. He didn't deserve this.
The president also told Fox he's picked the next city for National Guard troops to crack down on crime.
We're going to Memphis. Memphis is
that's the next city.
Deeply troubled. And the mayor is happy. He's a Democrat mayor. The mayor is happy. And the governor, Tennessee. The governor is happy.
The president also says he still wants to help Chicago and Illinois, but the Democratic mayor and governor keep resisting. The president also claims Washington, D.C. is crime-free after he sent troops and federal agents there. We're learning more about the student gunman who shot up Evergreen High School in Colorado on Wednesday, wounding 2 classmates.
According to the Denver Post, social media accounts appearing to be connected with the shooter are littered with references to mass shootings and anti-Semitic views. The school's lockdown procedures are being credited in preventing the shooter from reaching many more of the students, and both of those victims are in critical condition, according to police.
Fox's Chandler Painter, the teenage gunman, is dead. He shot himself. A student at the Naval Academy in Maryland is hospitalized after being injured during what ended up being an active shooter false alarm. That student mistook naval security forces who'd responded for an attacker and attacked them and was shot and wounded in response. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning. It's 66 degrees in Chicago in the AM 560 The Answer newsroom. I'm Nikki Whaley. Community members in Lamont are remembering former SRN Salem radio talk show host and political activist and Chicago area native Charlie Kirk. A vigil was held yesterday.
We have to keep on fighting. It's what Charlie would want. We cannot be scared.
Lamont is the original home of Turning Point USA, the conservative youth organization co-founded by Kirk in 2012. Kirk was shot and killed Wednesday while speaking on stage at Utah Valley University. His killer is still at large. The city of Chicago is proposing a $90 million settlement to resolve 176 wrongful conviction lawsuits tied to disgraceful former police sergeant Ronald Watts. The suits were filed by people who claim their convictions were based on fabricated evidence from Watts and his team. Their convictions have been vacated. The proposed payouts will be presented next week for approval at the Committee on Finance meeting before being voted on by the full city council. Several top Illinois officials are demanding answers from the White House about the usage of the Naval Station Great Lakes for its immigration operation. The Sun-Times reports that U.S. Representative Brad Schneider and U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin sent a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. The trio demanded to know how the base would be used and for how long. They also requested that federal agents properly identify themselves while operating in the state. News is a service of AlmostFreeTeeth.com. Have you been getting high quotes for dental implants with medical PPO insurance? It's possible to save 90% off on average. See if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com, making smiles great again. A check of the roads coming up in 2 minutes, but now time for the Signature Bank Business Beat.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The Wall Street Journal says Paramount Skydance is working on an offer for Warner Brothers Discovery. The bid will be for the entire business, cable networks, and movie studio. Skydance, run by David Ellison, son of billionaire Larry Ellison, just weeks ago closed the merger with Paramount. Six Flags, the theme park company, says summer attendance rose to higher levels than a year ago, though people were spending less and it used promotions to drive sales. Giorgio Armani instructed his heirs to gradually sell the fashion brand or seek a stock listing. Reuters reviewed Armani's will. He died last week at 91 and had no children. Furniture brand RH is lowering its forecast for the year, citing continued tariff uncertainty. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosola. Invested in you.
Your home is a valuable asset, and you want to take care of your home. From roofs, siding, windows, and doors to furnaces, flooring, landscaping, and much more. Listen to your go-to for all things home. It's Home Answers Radio every Sunday morning at 9. Presented by Lang Home Medical Equipment, Valdecast Windows and Doors, and by JeffBuysYourHouse.com. Get answers from industry experts so you can make informed decisions about your home improvement. Right here on AM 560, The Answer.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Since 9/11, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation has been supporting America's greatest heroes and their families. Heroes like Mark Holbert. Mark enlisted in the United States Army and served multiple tours, including 3 in Afghanistan. On his 4th tour, he stepped on an improvised explosive device and lost 2 of his fingers and both legs. Tunnel to Towers provided Mark with a mortgage-free smart home, which enables Mark to live more independently. Support America's heroes, like Mark. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos. Fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/term. That's ethos.com/term.
From the the Team Hawkberg Traffic Center, I'm Nikki Whaley. On the Edens, inbound from Lake Cook to Montrose, 21 minutes. Outbound, 19 minutes. On the Kennedy, inbound from Montrose to the Burn Interchange, 29 minutes. Outbound is 14 minutes. On the Eisenhower, inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 41 minutes. Outbound is about 31 minutes. On the Stevenson, inbound from Tri-State to Lakeshore Drive, 38 minutes. Outbound is 26 minutes. On the Dan Ryan, inbound from 95th to the Burn Interchange, it's going to be about 31 minutes. The express lanes, inbound from Marquette to the Stevenson, 16 minutes. On the outbound side of the express lanes, 5 minutes. On the outbound lanes of the Dan Ryan, about 11 minutes. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be very warm with sunshine blending with clouds. Expect a high of 85. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy with a chance of a thunderstorm in some areas by dawn. The low will be 66. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here, and we discussed this quite a bit last week after RFK Jr.'s testimony before the Senate Finance Committee and the spirited exchanges he had with several senators, Republicans and Democrats. And that was against the backdrop of the announcement out of Florida by Dr. Joseph Ladapo, the Surgeon General there, formerly UCLA Medical School. We've had him on the show many times. During COVID, before he took the post as Surgeon General down in Florida. But we've had him on since then, too. But he announced that Florida was making child vaccinations optional across the board, not just for COVID. And that generated a lot of reaction from the medical establishment, as you might suspect. Although, as I mentioned in our discussion with RFK's testimony, you know, I bit of a wait and see approach because I had concerns about RFK Jr. in terms of whether he would be somebody that was practical as HHS Secretary and work in a collaborative way with medical doctors, who I do have great regard for, like Marty Makary and Jay Bhattacharya. Or would he be more ideological and sort of take some of the postures and approaches he took as an activist now that he's in an executive cabinet level position? And it seemed to me, at least from his testimony, that it is the more pragmatic, collaborative approach that he has taken. Although you can quibble with some personnel choices, I suppose, the question is he pushing sort of a rigid sort of doctrinaire anti-vax ideology? And that wasn't his testimony. For more on all of this, pleased to be joined by Dr. Scott Rivkees, who's a professor of practice at the Brown School of Public Health. He is a pediatrician and former state surgeon general and secretary of health, state of Florida. He has written a piece over at thehill.com that takes a much more critical view of RFK Jr. than I do, which is okay. That's why we're going to discuss it. America, you're now on your own to make medical decisions is the title of the piece. Dr. Rivkees, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So, you know, I read your piece, of course, but I give me your perspective on what RFK offered in his testimony last week, and whether you think that it represents an open-mindedness on vaccines that maybe he didn't always express as an activist before he was HHS Secretary.
This is a very important issue, and I think one of the things that those of us in the medical community are very concerned about is that vaccines and vaccination are currently being undermined by Secretary Kennedy. Some of his statements about vaccines, some of the stances that he has taken, clearly have an anti-vaccine bent to them, and is leading to public confusion about it. I mean, the public is not sure where to get information from. The CDC used to be the authoritative source for medical information, but with some of the changes that have happened, particularly with the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, individuals who are on there now, it has led to really a loss of confidence in this process by the medical community and by a good part of the public.
Well, I mean, but, most people trust their kid's pediatrician. They're not trusting the CDC director. They don't even know who the CDC director is. So why can't those decisions be made at the personal level between parent and pediatrician for their kid? Why does there have to be sort of uniformity of opinion among all pediatricians with respect to all their patients?
Yeah, really important opinion. So first of all, the decisions are between parents and their physicians, but in addition, public health puts some other guardrails in place. And what they're talking about is really school vaccination requirements. Right. And so independent of what parents decide with their pediatrician, all states in this country have vaccine requirements for children to go to school. And the reason for this is twofold. So first of all, we know that within schools, because children are very active, diseases can spread really quite readily, and you have to have a certain level of protection. So this vaccine protection is really dependent upon two things. First, a parent vaccinating their child, and then also other parents vaccinating their children. So a parent's decisions, whether to vaccinate their child or not, will influence the health of other children. So this is why, going back a century, and the Supreme Court has ruled on this, that vaccines are first neither arbitrary nor are they oppressive. And for the greater good, mandatory vaccination can be required for individuals to go into school. So that's what this discussion is really about.
And just, give us the profile on some of these vaccines. Unlike many who are armchair epidemiologists and virologists, I try to recognize the limitations of my knowledge in some areas. There's a whole schedule of vaccines that are mandated, and the mandates vary a little bit from state to state. But some of the core vaccines where you would argue that the evidence is overwhelming, that it is a preventative with low risk to the child, such that the vaccination greatly outweighs any potential harm.
Yeah, so let's talk about, one of the ones that's the most controversial vaccine is measles, mumps, rubella, because of the false notion that it's associated with autism. So before measles vaccine came into effect in early 1960s, there were 500,000 cases of measles a year and more than 500 deaths. In terms of polio vaccine, there are more than 40,000 cases of polio a year. The chickenpox vaccine, which is potentially a requirement could be eliminated in Florida with a new rule change, there are more than 4 million cases a year of chickenpox in the United States. And Dan, when I was a medical intern back at Mass General Boston, the first patient I saw was a 4-year-old boy who had encephalitis, brain inflammation due to chickenpox, and this child was left neurologically damaged. That would not happen now. So, there are vaccines that have been around since the 60s, newer vaccines which have been added, which are incredibly protective. Also, when I was an intern, we used to always take care of infants and older children who had Haemophilus influenza, meningitis, again left with either hearing loss, neurologic injury. These diseases really are a thing of the past. These vaccines, after they're released, they continue to be monitored. They have an excellent safety profile. Of course, there are side effects, but these side effects are very, very rare. And we have to balance these very rare side effects against the consequences of these diseases that can spread among children really quite readily.
So in those vaccines, you're describing the benefits far outweighing the costs. What would you say about COVID vax for kids?
Yeah, so first of all, in terms of, the pandemic, just to put things in perspective, more than 2,000 children died from COVID during the pandemic. These vaccines related to children have really been shown to be effective in terms of preventing severe disease. And in fact, the severe disease for COVID now for young kids, it's really in the young kids, less than 2 years of age, where we really see incredible morbidity, very high hospitalization rate from COVID. So, there was this issue early on about myocarditis being associated, and this was a rare side effect related to the second dose of vaccines, but that hasn't been seen in the past 3 years with the current vaccine formulation and vaccine schedule. So, those of us in pediatrics, who care for children with COVID, we've seen children hospitalized. And the other thing that has come out is that after you have COVID, even it can be a mild case, you sometimes can have a condition called long COVID. And again, this is prevented by vaccines. So again, 2,000 children have died from COVID. Most of these children are actually healthy children without underlying medical conditions, and these were potentially vaccine preventable deaths.
Well, on COVID, I mean, this is a piece from Dr. Marty Makary from 2 years ago, where he cites a number of studies. He writes this: if public health officials got their way, every healthy 12-year-old girl in America would get 70 COVID vaccine doses in her average lifespan, with a risk of heart damage, myocarditis, you just mentioned, after each shot. Instead of following the science, U.S. officials continue to propagate old myths that vaccines prevent transmission and that myocarditis is more common after COVID than after the vaccine, and that's not true. Myocarditis is 4 to 28 times more common after the vaccine in a cohort of young males, a recent JAMA, Journal of the AMA, cardiology study found. University of Basel study, asymptomatic heart damage occurred in 2.8% of people after the COVID booster, as measured by the troponin test. He goes on to cite other studies that suggest that the benefits do not outweigh the costs with respect to young people and, an endless series of COVID boosters.
Thank you for that. I'm familiar with those studies. As I mentioned, this was something that was seen early on, has not been seen in the past 2 to 3 years with the way the vaccines are formulated and the vaccine schedule. In fact, 2 years ago, out of 700,000 doses that were given to children, I think that 2 or 3 cases of myocarditis were seen. And myocarditis is a complication of COVID-19. So when you actually look at the risk of myocarditis due to COVID versus the vaccine, it's much, much higher related to COVID. But again, with the way the vaccine schedule is given now, myocarditis is not seen. Now, as far as
just if I could, I mean, so I remember that some Scandinavian countries like Denmark and Sweden officially recommended against vaccinating healthy children for COVID. Moderna COVID vaccine was banned or restricted in parts of Europe for people under the age of 30. Have those policies changed?
I'm not familiar with those international policies at all, but I do want to go back to the statement you made that individuals, a young child, can have 70 doses of vaccine over the course of their lifetime with a risk of myocarditis. That's not correct. And then also, in terms of routine vaccines during certain seasons, individuals will get a flu vaccine every year as well. So, flu, again, is a serious illness. Up to 20,000 people will die a year from flu, including young and old. This past year, we had 50,000 people die from COVID-19. Most are older individuals, but it can affect younger individuals. The risk is greater for people who are older. So this is why, in terms of looking at what's the greatest risk, for children, it really is the very young children, which is why the American Academy of Pediatrics has recommended that COVID vaccines be given between 6 months and 2 years of age, because that really is the highest risk factor now, even for healthy children, getting hospitalized, and make it optional between children 2 and 18 years of age if parents want it.
The American Academy of Pediatrics, the AMA, these are sort of these advocacy organizations that are always referenced as biblical in terms of their standing. They've said, and so that's the end of the discussion. But I wonder if you think those same organizations and public health officials, both in the government as well as at the academic level, that were particularly prominent during COVID, if any sort of acknowledgement of things they got wrong, widely distributed, would assist in these sorts of discussions? Or do you think that for the most part they did everything right based on what they knew at the time?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that I haven't always agreed with in terms of some of the recommendations that came out during early part of the pandemic. But, this was a new virus, very serious virus. We've lost, we lost 1 million people in this country during this pandemic, and some of the things that were new about the virus compared to flu was that the asymptomatic spread was a big part of this. In terms of some of the areas, I think related to some of the school policies, when first in terms of schools closing and then schools reopening in the summer of 2020. Again, the first case of COVID in the United States was in January 2020. Most of the schools in the United States closed in mid-March of 2020. And then we had this bifurcated response where some schools opened in the summer of 2020 and some schools remain closed. And the American Academy of Pediatrics had recommended tying school reopening to what the prevalence was in the community. And I disagreed with that. And in Florida, we reopened our schools at a time when we had very high levels of COVID in the community. And we did so successfully. But I do also need to point out, in terms of the impact, on children, when we went into July of 2021, when we ended up having the Delta wave for COVID coming in, COVID really had a pretty significant impact on children in Florida. And, I monitored this very, very closely, and I've actually written about this. We had about 20 children, most of whom were all healthy, who died over this 3-month period when we had the Delta wave from COVID, and these children were not vaccinated. So, COVID did take its toll on children over this period of time. And this is why, in terms of protective measures within schools, surveillance, making sure that vaccines were available to children was one of the important things that we did.
Just the VAERS system, the vaccine adverse event reporting system.
Sure.
Is there a way that could be improved, or that could be more widely addressed by public health professionals to perhaps inspire more confidence about some of these vaccines, including COVID?
Yeah, so first of all, it's a reporting system where individuals will submit information about side effects they have. This is one of the things that we actually advocated, and we actually gave up when, the early days of the pandemic, when people get vaccinated, we'd actually give them cards, if they have side effects, to report this. So whether it's COVID vaccines, whether it's flu vaccines, whether it's a medication, if people are having side effects from these, it's important that they report them through the system, which goes to the FDA, so they can be looked at and monitored. And so, again, public involvement, physician involvement. This is one of the things that when I'd have calls with medical groups saying that, if you're seeing patients that have side effects, make sure that these get reported to VAERS. And so this way we can track, what is happening. So in terms of that portal, I've used it myself. I've submitted information that way. I think the issue comes down to making sure that people are aware of it, and that this does get reported. And then also the FDA continuously monitors this and looks at these different side effects, and will pull together the information about it and look for trends that may be disturbing.
When you see stories coming out of places like California that because there was a spike in COVID cases that officials are recommending kids wear masks at school, what's your reaction?
Yeah, in terms of masks, it all depends on the circumstances where you are. So first of all, it depends on the type of mask that's being worn and where it's being worn. So, for example, we know that COVID really does not transmit well in the outdoor environment, and so because of this, having doors open, windows open, effective ventilation is really, really critically important. And in terms of the mask which is being worn, an N95 mask is really the one which is effective. Cloth masks, surgical masks that are worn over the chin, which we see a lot, are not going to be effective. So from my point of view, ventilation is one of the most critical factors if you really want to decrease spread. There is evidence that there can be a modest effect of masks, but on the big scheme of things, less effective than some of the other measures.
I mean, after all the mutations, is COVID any more dangerous in terms of serious illness or death than the seasonal flu?
Yes.
It is more dangerous still.
Yeah. So last year, Dan, if you look at the data, last year, 50,000 deaths due to COVID, and half those number of deaths due to flu. So so it remains a serious virus.
And what percentage of those were 65 plus? Do you know?
Most individuals are older. So during the pandemic, we had more than 1 million deaths. More than 85% of those individuals are 65 years of age and older. But we do have children who will die. We have young adults who will die as well. So, it preys on adhesive fury on older people and the medically vulnerable, but it also affects other individuals, which is the same for flu. And this is the reason, flu shots have been around for decades, and this is why the recommendation is that, individuals, young and old, end up getting flu shots, and for COVID vaccines as well, if people want to get one, they should be able to get one.
What about 6 feet apart? Should we bring that back too?
Say that again, sir.
What about 6 feet apart? Should we bring that back as well? 6 feet apart, standing 6 feet apart. The circles on the floor and all that. Remember that?
No. That's First of all, we're in a different situation now than we had before. So first of all, you have lots of population immunity due to vaccines and individuals having had COVID. So we're in a different kind of situation than we were early on.
Dr. Scott Rifkes is a professor of practice at the Brown School of Public Health, pediatrician, and former state surgeon general and secretary of health in the state of Florida as well. Dr. Rifkes, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
It's been an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. And right now, AM 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty with their Generac. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
AM 560, The Answer.
Open mic! Open mic Friday! Call in now! Open mic Friday!
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Yes, it's that time of the week. Open Mic Friday, taking your calls. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Your calls with comments, concerns, criticisms, compliments, general crack pottery. We will take it all as we do. And we start with the turnkey.pro founder, as we always do. David Kolsak, welcome.
Good morning, Dan. This has been a terrible week of events, and these two tragedies are changing the way that the world defines what's acceptable to talk about. The zeitgeist is changing. So you've got this young woman on the train who was viciously stabbed in cold blood by a man who no one tried to stop or even react to him doing such a violent act. He exited the train supposedly saying he got that white girl. I don't know. I don't think that there's been any other reason for her murder other than she sat down in the wrong seat and the color of her skin was white. Extraordinarily unacceptable. And the media did not cover it until people like Charlie Kirk started talking about it. And then you have the shocking assassination of that same Charlie Kirk. To young people, particularly young men, this moment was devastating. It is devastating, and they will remember where they were and what they were doing at the moment they heard of his assassination. Now, I don't know Charlie Kirk well, but he did grow up in my area. He attended the same high school that I did at Wheeling High School. I got the chance to speak with him at one of AM 560's Freedom Summits back in 2020 when it was up in Lake Geneva. My wife and I got a few minutes to chat where we talked about our common roots in Wheeling. My interactions with him were very genteel. He took the time to talk to us and was very, very engaging. I want to share something most people don't know. One of the things he said was he went back to Wheeling High School and wanted to set up a scholarship program or a grant system to help kids who needed help. He told me that the school in District 214 refused to allow him to do so as they didn't believe in his ideology. To me, that's just shameful behavior, and it makes me so sad to hear that Wheeling High School could be so spiteful, and petty. Anyway, on Wednesday, just like everybody else, I was minding my business at work when I saw many people that I follow saying, "Pray for Charlie Kirk," so I did. And then I turned my attention to X, where I wanted to find out what was going on. To much of my displeasure, I saw the videos of him getting hit by a bullet. The first thing I thought was there's no way someone could survive that. And then there was more focused and close-up videos that were absolutely gruesome. Now, I've never been on a battlefield or in hand-to-hand combat, but even if there were an operating room right next door to where this happened, there's probably nothing they could have done. But it took some time for the news of his passing to come. Sadly, although everyone was praying for a miracle, Charlie was gone. Who is to blame and how it was carried out is still unfolding, and I hear they have a suspect in custody. All well-planned assassins never find their killers or, have a patsy. The fact is that this assassin was very well organized. He got access to that roof of a secure building at a long distance with a bolt-action rifle that doesn't collapse. He then got off the roof with the said weapon, and then he leaves the rifle in the woods. Why not leave it on the roof? That reminds me of finding passports amidst the rubble on 9/11. Two separate decoys threw off the tiny local police force. I mean, there's lots of questions here. Little to no security, strange hand signals by the people behind him, and they didn't even lock down the local airport. What's with the flight that left the local airport just minutes after the shooting? Flight tracking data shows that a jet left Provo Airport shortly after 2 p.m. heading towards the Arizona border. Then it turns off its transponder and disappears from radar, later returning to Provo. That's not legal. However, both this train incident and the Charlie Kirk assassination play out, it's clear that we are at a turning point. And there is this term that came from the work of Joseph Overton in the 90s, where he describes what ideas are considered acceptable to speak about in public. It's called the Overton window. I would contend that these two events this week have blown a gaping hole in this Overton window. Both of these tragedies are being framed not as just isolated acts of violence, but as symptoms of systemic failure. This framing is changing the conversation. I hear it on your show today. People are talking more freely. The murder of Irina Zaruska is being used to highlight the anti-white bias in the media and justice systems, while Charlie Kirk's assassination is being framed as political martyrdom, and it elevated the idea that political violence is not random but rather targeted. Who did Charlie agitate to this kind of vitriol? Who benefits from his death? And from what I can see, there's a continental divide between us and them. You've got people peacefully holding vigils over Charlie Kirk's death, as opposed to the horrible people online and on CNN that say that he got what he deserved. And you see an elevated amount of black versus white animosity everywhere. People are fatigued, and it feels like a true precipice. It's a mess, and I'm not sure where it ends up at all, but the Overton window is shifting, and people are noticing. We are all now allowed to talk about some taboo subjects that we couldn't speak of before, and we should be ready for that. Charlie was all about having conversations, and we will be doing more of that, hopefully. And whatever patsy they blame this on, there's not a lot of trust in what the government tells us. We've seen this movie before. Let's just hope it all plays out peacefully. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks, David. The shooter in custody, or the suspected shooter who's in custody, has been identified. I'm not going to tell you his name, but he has been named. He's a 22-year-old who apparently is a resident of Utah. That's all that I have seen reported so far. You can expect more details on him when the FBI offers its briefing later today, as President Trump said would be happening on his appearance on Fox and Friends this morning, as we had discussed previously on the show. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro, answer line and text line on this Open Mic Friday. Before we get to calls, I did want to also take a moment to recognize somebody else who passed this week, and that's Bruce Dumont, the great Bruce Dumont.
From beyond the Beltway, this is Bruce Dumont with our weekly analysis of national politics, featuring occasional injections of rumor and innuendo, all offered up by our panel of political insiders, pundits, power brokers, public servants, and professors, and most importantly, plain-speaking Americans from coast to coast.
So it was 21 years ago, this past February, that I made my first appearance in Beyond the Beltway on Dumont Show. And it was last year I made my last. I think, yes. Or is it earlier this year? I'm blanking. I'm old now. Anyway, point is this. I had the opportunity to then be on a show after that first appearance with Cliff Kelly and Bill Cameron at the time. Dozens and dozens of more times over the years. I guest hosted for Bruce a number of times, which was a great honor. And, he is somebody who really launched and or aided the careers of many people in broadcast media and politics and policy, mine included, and actually Charlie Kirk's included. Because I remember when Charlie Kirk was, 18, 19 years old, and he was just getting Turning Point off the ground, actually. It was the brainchild of Bill Montgomery, a retired marketing executive who had heard Charlie speak at a college and was impressed by him and had this idea, which is not a new idea. It was a new spin on an old idea. The Leadership Institute. Morton Blackwell, who was the youth grassroots chairman for Ronald Reagan's campaign in 1980, founded the Leadership Institute in 1979. The Leadership Institute, would do college campus trainings, would get young people involved in media and electoral politics if they wanted, and they also had campaign schools if you wanted to be a candidate. And but Blackwell in 1980 was like in his early 40s, and he was a creature of the Republican Party. The interesting thing about Turning Point was it came from outside the party, and it was so grassroots oriented, and it was sort of providing new energy on college campus, where a lot of college Republican chapters and why our chapters had become sort of stale and moribund or completely defunct. And so Charlie and Turning Point and that whole operation filled that void, and I think exceeded maybe even their own expectations in terms of the kind of movement they launched, which is great. But I would see Charlie was speaking at events. He was, learning the trade and getting more comfortable speaking publicly and thinking through ideas. As a teenager, when I was on the trail too, a few years after I ran for governor, still doing Republican Party events, Charlie was out there. So we actually interacted quite a number of times. I know he was on this show a number of times. I think the last time he was on with me and Amy, when he had a book out, he said to us, I grew up listening to you guys, which was a nice compliment, but also made us feel very old. Anyway, the point is this, just getting back to Dumont and Charlie, Dumont did so much for the medium and for other people, but perhaps his greatest contribution was serving as an example of how to use it. His show, as I'm sure many people are familiar, Beyond the Beltway, put together panels of people who disagreed for spirited exchanges on the pressing issues of the day. And Bruce made sure everybody colored inside the lines, and never made it about himself. It was always about the quality of the conversation, because he was a, avid, political junkie, for lack of a better word. And so you would have these spirited conversations, and then you hash it out. He wanted it to be robust, and then you figure a way for everyone to get on, muddle through the acrimony of the show, and then come back the following Sunday and do it again. And he taught me, Bruce Dumont, the value of, how to add value as a talk show host, to the extent I've been able to do that. Which is, you want to think about the listener and aiding an enhancement of their understanding of the world around them, rather than just engaging in cheap self-indulgence and making it always about you. He made the microphone, as I posted on X last night upon hearing of his passing at 81. He made the microphone a sacred thing to me. Sort of the idea, use it wisely or have it turned off by somebody. And so I owe Bruce Dumont a huge debt of gratitude. And so do America's airwaves, as the content pumped through them became less enlightened when he stopped broadcasting and stepped away. As I wrote, and I'll just read it, he was a Chicago original, a big, affable gentleman with a great sense of humor who loved a robust political discussion. And I hope there's a studio in heaven with those words you just heard from his iconic intro etched near the entrance of that. Okay. Now let's take some calls. Jim in Tampa, Florida.
Hey, that was a great tribute. It's so interesting because it kind of ties into what I want to say, especially when you were talking about the microphone. I want to talk about elementary school and elementary school teachers and the position that they hold standing in front of kids. And what I want to emphasize is that elementary school kids are concrete thinkers and black and white, right and wrong. And when we are afraid to use words like right and wrong and make things clear to kids, Bill O'Reilly was talking about this to you earlier today, then we do not serve those kids properly. And when we try to frame things in a nuanced way so people's feelings don't get hurt, but that is the opening that the other side has, because they jump on that nuance and they inject narratives and stories, and the next thing you know, the kids don't know what to think, and they don't know what's right and what's wrong. And we've got people not afraid to stand up and say, no, this is right, this is wrong. This is this concrete thinking, understanding that this is how the kids think, and they need clear signals and clear messages. That's the point I wanted to make.
Thanks for the call, Jim. Ann in New Lenox.
Hi. Yes, I didn't even catch the doctor's name. I don't even care. But his support of those COVID vaccines is driving me crazy. I just texting you like a crazy woman. He drinks the AMA Kool-Aid. He drank it well. And the AMA has brought this mistrust on all by themselves. And thank God, Florida is going to be our Scandinavian proof that the experts don't have the science is settled. Drives me nuts. Thank God, per RFK, sorry. It's time we start to learn by doing something instead of sitting back and saying, God, what's causing this? What's causing this? Yes, okay.
Thank
I'm
you,
done.
Ann. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Well, it looks like Memphis is back on the list, the next one on the list for that National Guard ICE operation. The best way we can honor Charlie Kirk, I told this Hugh Hewitt yesterday afternoon, is to win those midterm elections. I saw the story this week. 12th graders are reading at a low time
all-time
with
low. Yeah.
reading and math scores. Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, I'd say it. Thanks for the call, Howard. It's more than a shame. It's a massive problem. Matt, Southside.
Hey, good morning, Dan. I was going to say, Pritzker's warning everybody about the ICE agents and wearing their masks. Isn't this coming from the same guy who wanted everyone wearing masks a couple months ago? I mean, let's face it. I mean, first of all, he should be wearing a mask. Second of all, like I said, he pushed for masks. The ICE agents should just say they thought the COVID restrictions were still in place in Illinois.
Thanks for the call, Matt. Verlon in Michigan.
The Democrats are a death cult. They will literally kill you for what you say. What you say literally hurts them. You'll be surprised all of the text messages that I got for the past 2 days with people that I know. I'm not even going to call them friends really at this point. People that I know. F him. He said bad things about Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Act. They're still crying about things that Donald Trump said 8 years ago. And people like Maurice that called in yesterday, they really make me sick. It's nauseating, this both sides argument. Look, Maurice, what you said, I'm going to steal a phrase from Ron from the South Side. It's garbage. The left has been trying to assassinate people since Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump. They the ones that try to assassinate presidents. And now Charlie Kirk, the future. The future. This is a guy, me and you, 50, 53, we about to be old fogies. This was the future of the party. And people like Maurice and others want to play both sides. Both sides. It's no comparison. So, man, that's all I wanted to say, Dan. You know, that pissed me off yesterday, but I couldn't wait to open line Friday to call you and talk about it today.
Thank you for the call, Verlon. Kevin on the Kennedy.
Hey, good morning, Dan. And I totally reiterate what your last caller just said. He was the future of the party, absolutely. I was calling just in regards to, I remember I think it was 2021 when there were students at Taft High School that wanted to start a Turning Point USA chapter, and CPS in typical form denied their charter. I wonder if maybe their hypocrisy will shine through, and maybe hopefully someone will try to start one again in the school. I don't have any kids there, nor do I plan on sending my kids to CPS. But yeah, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if, with all the attention that Turning Point grows as a result, and more young people take the initiative at the high school level, as you're mentioning, in addition to the college level, to open chapters, or at least to press the issue. Opportunity to do a little bit of a stress test on some of these institutions, these quote unquote educational institutions, I would say. Dawn in Naperville.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to say that Charlie Kirk had a special calling on his life from God.
And not all of us have the same calling. So that is why we need to pray every day. Because the truth is, we don't want to live our lives in vain. And we don't want to live our lives in a way that we're not called to. So we don't want to be distracted. So we want to make sure that we're responding in a way of love and kindness and courage. That's the most important thing, is have courage. And see, Charlie's calling was he demolished arguments in a way that made the other side run away. Because the truth is, they can't defend. They can't defend the most anxious generation. See, that's what's really sad. He saw the need of an anxious generation. And Charlie said, no, I want you to trade and exchange your anxiousness for faith. And see, when you have faith in God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but God does. So we don't need to worry. God said, be worried and anxious for nothing. Why? Because he's good and faithful in all that he does. And I just believe that God is going to take what this tragedy was and turn it around for the good. Because that's what the Lord God does. He always turns it around for the good, and he has the final say. So let's live that way as if he has the final say. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Jack in Northwest Indiana.
Hey, Dan. So I happen to be watching WGN TV, not of my choosing. That's another topic, but they described Charlie Kirk as a right-wing activist and discussing the situation. And it's so infuriating, but it just is reflective of what the local, not in local, but national media is. They couldn't say conservative activist. They use a word that they know has a negative connotation. Even upon his death, they have to describe him in a negative connotation. The fight ahead is going to be long and arduous. There's no doubt. They will continue to pummel anybody who has an alternative view.
Oh, yeah, of course they will. I'm surprised they didn't say crypto conservative. When Cranes did a story on me selling my condo in Chicago, publisher of fake newspaper sells condo. Of course. I mean, they have no class. They are uncharitable, unkind people because they're unreasonable people. And you see, unreason is a euphemism in terms of what you see coming from so many quarters of the left remarking upon Charlie Kirk's assassination, isn't it? No surprise. Bob in Naperville.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the tape you played earlier today. You had the Michael Strahan clone on that CBS hired.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot his name, but I was very impressed with his vocabulary. Do you recall the 2 5-syllable words he used?
I don't. I'd have to go back and play the clip, but
yeah. It was misrepresentation and
disinformation and misinformation.
Yeah, and in one day you used inane, obsequious, and capriciously, and sometimes I have to look up your words. You've got a heck of a vocabulary, but my question is, I think he's in way over his head, and if you do get him on air, see if he knows the difference between those 2 words. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, misinformation and disinformation, that's one of those rote phrases of the left, isn't it? In lieu of actually being able to explain anything or stake out a claim that is evidence-based. No, I get it. Very good. Roy and Glen Ellen.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Just that previous caller reminded me that JB once called you Dan Prophet.
Yes. And he also called me a right-wing activist from Florida, of course.
Yes.
It was nice. A friend of mine, actually, after Pritzker called me that, got me a box of Titleist golf balls with right-wing activist on the golf ball. So it's nice. Anyway, go ahead.
But real quick, my point was there was a fight at the Rams and Houston, Texas game last weekend in the section above the end zone. And the script on the end zone said, choose love. They're not listening.
Yeah, the NFL. Stop hate, choose love. Yeah, okay. Well, a couple of guys beat each other's brains out. Oh, man, that's beautiful. Joe in Arlington. Oh, our poet laureate, the AM 560 Chicago's Morning Answer. Poet laureate Joe, Arlington Heights.
Good morning. You know, if I worked on a poem for a week, I wouldn't do justice to what Charlie deserves. But when I heard the news that the assassin was captured, this poem just came out. We Miss You, Charlie, by Joe from Arlington Heights. More deadly than a viper lying in wait is the human heart when filled with hate. No tolerance for alternative opinions, blind to their own lives, full of lies and sins. Charlie walked out like a sheep among wolves, a true hero to both the naive and fools. Wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove, striving only to offer God's truth and love. Offering all to exercise freedom of speech, discussion with all whom the truth may seek. Honesty was his powerful trademark, while unrelenting optimism dwelled in his heart. A devoted husband and father of two, countless blessings achieved by few. But bounty and glory were not his aim. He only wanted to spread Jesus' name. Tirelessly battling societal strife, for all that is good he gave his young life. I never thought a martyr I would meet, but I have, and now he sits in a heavenly seat. Eternal rest unto Charlie, O Lord, and may the perpetual light shine upon him. May his soul and all the souls of the faithful departed rest in peace. Amen.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Roy in his car.
Hey, guys. Just a little something to dovetail onto Charlie Kirk's mission, talking to the young folks out there to get them to think in a critical manner. I work with a bunch of sports teams, and last night I was with one of them in the northern suburbs, and I was asking the coach, we were talking about Kirk's assassination, and I said, how does this team roll? Like, are these kids, ultra liberal? What's their stance? He goes, not one of them. He goes, they are all believing in Trump. They're all believing in conservatism, and he goes, more and more kids are all leaning that way. He coaches a couple teams too. He said these kids are waking up, and that's a great sign, because that's where the work needs to be done. It's not the people that already believe in it. It's the young folks that are very pliable, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Roy. Appreciate that. All right, Chuck in Delavan to close it out. Chuck.
Well, thanks for mentioning my band, Roy, in his car. That was my high school garage band. Hey, everybody get up here, Delavan. We've got the big Scarecrow Fest this weekend. And then everybody, when you get done with the Scarecrow Fest, head over to Herner's Hideaway, and they've got a gigantic, it's 16 pounds, a big, gigantic fish fry. And you get a 16-pound fillet. It's great.
A 16-pound fillet. That is a big fish. Chuck from Delavan closing out with a fish story. Thank you for joining us this week. It is now 9 a.m. on AM 560 WIND.
This is a Fox News alert. The suspected Charlie Kirk assassin captured. I'm Dave Anthony. That's what President Trump told Fox and Friends this morning after images and surveillance videos of the suspect had been made public.
Somebody this close recognizes.